Shabbat Shalom, Mishpacha, Rabbi Simon from Pensacola, Florida, and good morning to you, good afternoon, and good evening, because looks like we're hitting all three time zones across the globe. So there's still some more people to come in. We still have more time, so that's fine. We'll give them a few more minutes. Hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear. And just a quick question to you guys that are present in the room. The new times that we've set, are they okay for most of the people? I'm pretty sure they're okay for the European people out there in the UK and stuff. But what about for people over here? I mean, people in the East Coast, West Coast. Are you guys okay with the new 8 o'clock Eastern time? Or is that giving some people bother? Okay, so you're all good with that time. That's great. Okay, that's brilliant. That's very good. Okay, so we have a interesting little session today. Our Parsha today is Parsha's Vayekhi. Now, obviously, let me just see before I kneel down. Okay, so right. So as you know, it's been a busy week. And looking forward to the Sabbath. Great that Sabbath is here and we can, rest the mind a little bit. But I've been doing a lot of reading, studying, listening, audios and stuff. And maybe, I'll talk a little bit about those things that I heard and read. Different people having different experiences of God and so on and so forth. However, I think that I'm not sure if... But let me make a statement. There are many people out there that are looking for answers, and what I found is that people have a very wrong concept of God, what God is, or who God is, and what God requires from us, or what is our duty to God. Well, let's put it this way: what is our duty to God? Not so much even what God requires, because you see, as far as institutionalized religion is concerned, yes, that is correct. As far as institutional religion is concerned, as you know, that we have different religions in the world, within Christianity, we have separate denominations. We then have something, people call Catholicism. We have Protestantism. We have Anglicanism. My goodness. If I start counting, I'll be here all day and probably all week. And I'm pretty sure I won't get through with it. Then we have Islam, then we have other religions of the world. I came across this person, and by all means, go listen to him if you like. His name is Neil Walsh. I was trying to pick up his name on one of his recordings. Neil Donald Walsh. Yeah, his name is Neil Donald Walsh. And I was listening to him, and he basically mentioned that he had an encounter with God. And but then you see, what happened was that he was in a real dire straits. And this is a man who's very popular now. He sold some 300 odd million copies of his books that he has, Conversations with God. I don't know if anybody's come across them, but I kind of came across his books, recently. Okay. So anyhow, so you may want to, I don't know, you may want to peruse through. You don't have to buy the books. You can just listen to his testimony on Larry King and a couple of other places. He's given plenty of testimony on YouTube. But the thing was that what I was interested in was I had an experience with God several years ago. As you know, I had a personal experience with God, and I wasn't originally from the faith of, let's just put it, faith of Messiah. And I didn't follow the Messiah because somebody told me about him, or because Christians came around my door and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, come on with us to the church and listen about salvation." None of those things happened to me. I was interested in hearing his experience of God, and what I found is that a lot of people listen to him probably, and a lot of people have bought his books. And I found that people are just looking for, here's my thought process. Listening to him, he seemed like a reasonable guy. He seemed like a guy who was stuck out in the streets. He became homeless at one time for a year. I believe on the streets of New York, and he was, eating food from dumpsters. And then, then after that, he had this experience with God that he claims, in which his life changed, and then he ended up, I guess, writing his books, and his books sold, and now he's a multimillionaire, etc. And so he is basically now saying that, God's message is not what people understand, and so his viewpoint of God. And I was interested in Larry King's show with him, because Larry King just, asked direct questions about religion. Well, did you ask about the Son? And he's like, no, I did not ask about the Son, that meaning Jesus of Nazareth. Then he said, what about the Holocaust? And so, questions like that. So I encourage you to listen to the show yourself. But one thing I found, just observation and comments. I want to make some observation and comments, and I want to set forth what my belief is versus what his belief is. Yeah, Larry King is a Jew, of course, but Larry King is not really a religious Jew. He's just a secular Jewish guy. I don't know if he's religious now, but as far as I knew, he was just secular. So having said that, but Larry King does some good shows, with hard-hitting questions. And so Larry King was asking the various questions, and so what basically transpired is this. Now you can listen to Larry King and you can make your own conclusions, but I had something to say on this, because I thought, people are going to come across this and say, well, is this God? Well, God doesn't want nothing from us. Well, we can just do whatever we want to. But where is justice? There's no sense of justice. Why? Because, Neil Walsh's version of God has no sense of justice whatsoever. Why? Because he has no law. His version of God has no law. His law is just, well, I guess he didn't actually define it, so I don't really know what his law is. Because when Larry King asked him, does God have a chosen people? And he turned around and said, no. God doesn't have a chosen people. God doesn't have no one that is particularly chosen. He has no mission for no one. He has no mission for anybody. You have your own purpose, etc. So the kind of, as soon as he said that, I had to, kind of step back a little bit. And then he addresses God as a she, which is fine. I'm not criticizing that he's calling God a she, a feminine, which is fine, because the Holy Spirit is a she. But the thing was that, I ascertained, if this man has heard from the Holy Spirit, let's just say, and he alleges that he has, written his 3 books and plus more based on what God has said, I find that, now this is my view, my opinion only. When he said that God doesn't have a chosen people, then that also means God doesn't have a law. Because who did God give his law to? Let's just face it. Let's face reality. Who did God give his law? Did he give it to the Gentiles? No. He gave it to us as a people. But since we don't exist, what's the purpose of God? I was like laughing when I heard this. I just burst, kind of, a little bit disconcerted, and I almost wanted to burst out laughing that God doesn't have a chosen people. Therefore God doesn't have a law. Therefore, God doesn't really care, right? So what is God? So is whoever you want to make him to be. So that's my kind of, that's what I took away from Larry King's program. That, you can type this on YouTube, Larry King interview with Neil Walsh, and you can hear it for yourself and make your own conclusions. But you see, what I found is that what people want is they want a God that they can mold. They can fine-tune like a radio station. You have these old radios with knobs and everything, and you can fine-tune a channel. You can, lift your aerial and, push it to the right, push it to the left, and then, you can kind of fine-tune a channel. This is what I'm finding, that now more and more people, they want God to be conformed to them. They don't want to conform to God. Now, we're not saying, I'm not advocating here that God is seeking to punish everybody, or God is going to send everybody to hell and, burning fire and brimstone and, Sodom and Gomorrah type of fire throwing on people. No, I'm not saying that and advocating that at all. All I'm saying is this, that a lot of people, what they want, a God that they can twist and mold, and, as long as God twists and dances to their rhythm, they're happy with God. In other words, everybody out there is seeking a God that molds to their likeness. They don't want to my desire, Simon Altaf, Simon Altaf's desire is to mold to God's way of living, to be loved, to be just, to be, righteous according to God's standards. That is my desire. So my question was this, that, that's my desire, but you see, most of the people out there that are seeking for God, or I shouldn't even say seeking for God, because they're not seeking for God, they're seeking for their will. And if Rabbi Kefa, always mentioned this in his testimony, that when the Holy Spirit spoke to him, and of course the Holy Spirit is a she, there's no doubts about that, he always said that he was spoken to and told that my word is my will. So when he said this, my word is my will, well, what is the word of God? Because you see, Larry King turned around and asked Neil Walsh. He said, "Well, what about the Muslims, and what about the jihad, and what about all these things that the Muslims did?" So Neil Walsh turned around and said, "Well, remember that there were crusades for 300 years, and the crusades for 300 years were, do or die, basically. You don't believe the Catholics or the Christians at the time, then you'd be killed on the spot." He said there was no second chances. They killed you on the spot, and that went on for 300 years. So he basically said that Islam really, as a revelation, was to, a counter, like a counter to the Crusades. So he basically alleged that that's why Islam came about. In other words, he was saying that Islam is also a kind of a faith, as a revelation. Buddhism, Islam, all the other religions of the world, to him were all different revelations of God to the people, but people had strayed, and that Neil Walsh has a correct message in that God really, God is really practically a DIY, do it yourself God. And in other words, you will just live your life and die and then maybe come back again. He didn't speak about coming back, but I'm pretty sure that is part of his philosophy, that you come back and you relive your life and so on and so forth. But again, read the book and make your own conclusions. But a lot of this kind of spirituality I found on the internet these days is where God is molded into somebody or someone who has no standards of living. And maybe if you went by everything, that's right, there has to be a baseline, but in this particular scenario, I found no baseline. You see, if I wanted to serve a God like this, well, where would I start? What is his law? What is he required? Well, basically nothing. He just requires me to live, just to be a nice person. That's it. Well, how are you going to be nice? I don't know. What is your standard of nice? Well, I guess whatever your standard of nice is, that's nice. You see, so again, it was very, to me, it seemed like a very wishy-washy, self-mold type of God, where he has no standard, he has no baseline, he has no law, he has no chosen people, etc., etc., and it kind of goes on from there. So I'm not criticizing him. Don't get this wrong. Don't get this as a critical analysis. I'm just simply saying that I felt, after listening to him, and after seeing the people that were sitting there in the audience, because there was audiences where he was sitting present, and they were showing like video camera recordings as well of different events he went to, is all I found is that people are seeking a God that is, of course, just and loving, but just and loving by the standard of the people. So, right, so, and Rabbi Kefa is saying that yet everyone wants to be in the kingdom of heaven, should not a kingdom of have law and order. Exactly. So according to and I agree with that any kingdom, whether it's the kingdom of God, whether it's a kingdom of the United Kingdom, whether it's a kingdom of the United States, every kingdom has laws. And we know that, all across the globe, we have different countries. These are all kingdoms, fiefdoms. They all have their own laws. Whether they are based on religious laws, Christian biblical text laws, or whether they are secular laws, they all have laws. Now, so therefore, to me, a God that's kind of sent us here, or, the bottom line is this: what are we doing over here, I guess? And to me, the answer is very simple. God chose Israel. God chose a family of Abraham. through that family of Abraham, Israel was born, Israel being Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. God wanted to illuminate the world through these 12 people, these 12 tribes, 12 families, and God sent them for a mission, and they failed. And so that mission is now pending, which is now that we are all in the diaspora. We are now given a chance in the diaspora to reassess our mission, because when Jesus came, really it was the same mission. Mission hadn't changed. Jesus came and preached the same message that was preached through Moses, by using different techniques and different methods. But the people were not ready at Jesus' time, Yeshua's time. They were not ready to accept that message. Even then, some were, and the majority wanted to fight. They wanted to be the same people as before. They wanted to use the sword and the spear to drive the enemy out, and that wasn't the way. And so here we are in 2018, in December 22, wrestling about what is God and what's God's mission. Well, to me, it's clear what God's mission is. Hopefully, everybody that's listening to this, they will have clarity as well, that what's God's mission. God's mission hasn't changed. As far as I'm concerned, we are a chosen people. We are the children of Israel, and God's mission never changed. God never sent a memo through Neil Walsh saying that, hey, there is no more chosen people. Bye-bye. So if you want to follow Neil Walsh, by all means follow Neil Walsh. He's a good guy. I feel that his message is not in line with the Holy Scriptures that we have. That's all my concern. And otherwise, I felt that he's a nice guy, but his message is not in tune. And of course, I agree with him, all the things he mentioned about church theology is going out there, etc., etc. I agree that there's a lot of convolution, there's a lot of bad theology out there, and there's a lot of bad teachings. And the church is, all they talk about is salvation, fire and brimstone, hell. If you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to go to hell. You see, these are the kind of teachings have driven away some people into fear of God, and not love of God. Yet, whilst if you looked at scriptures, you'll find that majority of the times, through bad translations, it should really be reverence, not fear of God, because reverence drives love, not fear. When you fear somebody, you cannot love that person. And when we say fear only breeds, unfortunately, and you may or may not agree with me, but fear usually breeds disobedience, not obedience. Love is the only thing that will breed obedience, because it is through love that you breed obedience. Now, for instance, in a husband and wife, if a wife always feared her husband, I'm pretty sure she'll have a hard time loving that husband. All she did was fear that husband. She couldn't love that man. There's no way they will have a healthy relationship. The only way they could have a healthy relationship is if the wife loved the husband genuinely, then she could do the things for the husband that the husband requires based on love, not based on fear. And the same vice versa. The husband will love the wife and do the things based on love. And that is actually the message of the Bible. Think about it. The message of the Bible has been so convoluted, because what does God say in the Bible? What are we told in the New Testament? God is love. So if we're told God is love, where are we told that? Are we ever told that God says that I'm going to destroy you, or I'm going to send you into the fire and brimstone? So that's the problem. Yeah, absolutely, Rabbi Kefa. To tell a good lie, you must have some facts. See, this is the problem. This is the issue that we're dealing with. Now, you see, here's the issue. Issue is this, that, of course, everybody wants to have stability in their lives, and everybody wants to be successful. And you see, different people measure success differently. Now, I think that in today's modern world, in the world that we live, in the world of media, a lot of the time success is measured by how much money you have in the bank. And I feel that that is not the right yardstick to use, because success is not how much money you have. Success comes in different forms. Success may be, if you wanted to achieve something in life, like if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a judge, if you're going to be a doctor, you don't have to be a billionaire to be a doctor or a lawyer or a good lawyer or a good judge or a good doctor. You don't need to be a millionaire to do that. Therefore, you could be a great doctor and successful. You could be a great lawyer and you therefore have success. Well, what is success? Success is getting to somewhere where you wanted to be. Like if somebody decided they want to be in law, become a lawyer, for them, therefore success is that they became a lawyer. That's success in their lives. And then success, therefore, once they are successful, then they could, move forward from that and maybe earn money and do other things in society, etc. So that, I guess that would be success in that particular sense. Now, that's my, kind of my view on what success really is. Success is not predicated on, how many billions you have in the bank, but it's predicated on what you want to desire to get and what you do. And with that, I'm going to give you my joke this week. We have this joke where we had Baba. Baba was bragging to his boss one day, I know everyone there is to know. Just name someone, anyone, and I know them. Tired of his boasting, his boss called his bluff. He said, okay, Baba, how about Tom Cruise? And sure, yes, Tom and I are old friends, and I can prove it. So Baba and his boss fly out to Hollywood and knock on Tom Cruise's doors, and sure enough, Tom Cruise shouts, Baba, great to see you. You and your friend come right in and join me for lunch. Although impressed, Baba's boss is still skeptical. After they leave Cruise's house, he tells Baba that he thinks Baba's knowing Cruise was just lucky. No, just name anyone else, Baba says. President Clinton, his boss quickly retorts. Yes, Baba says, I know him. Let's fly out to Washington. And off they go. At the White House, Clinton spots Baba on the tour and motions him and his boss over, saying, Baba, what a surprise. I was just on my way to a meeting, but you and your friend come on right in and let's have a cup of coffee first and catch up. Well, the boss is very shaken by now, but still not totally convinced. After they leave the White House grounds, he expresses his doubts to Baba, who again implores him to name anyone else. The Pope, his boss replies. Sure, says Baba. My folks are from Poland, and I've known the Pope for a long time. So off they fly to Rome. Baba and his boss are assembled with the masses in Vatican Square when Baba says, this will never work. I can't catch the Pope's eye among all these people. Tell you what, I know all the guards, so let me just go upstairs and I'll come out on the balcony with the Pope. And he disappears into the crowd, headed toward the Vatican. Sure enough, half an hour later, Baba emerges with the Pope on the balcony. But by this time Baba returns, he finds that his boss has had a heart attack and is surrounded by paramedics. Working his way to his boss' side, Baba asks him, what happened? His boss looks up and says, I was doing fine until you and the Pope came out on the balcony and the man next to me said, who's that on the balcony with Baba? So there's your joke for this week. So basically, this is really fact. Fact is fact. In other words, there are people that we know that know a lot of other people, but we may have a hard time believing it because, that's just reality. Sometimes we just have a hard time believing people that they are telling the truth. And I can tell you that Rabbi Kefa will tell you that when God places a Kohen, then God places a Kohen with a very wide reach all over the place. So therefore, sometimes it's very hard to believe people, but I think that Baba's joke presents a real scenario that don't ever doubt. Because when God chooses somebody, so does he chooses a person's reach as well, how far he can reach and how far and wide he can go. And so therefore I was kind of like, I thought this joke was appropriate to be presented. That if God has really chosen somebody, then God will choose his reach as well with him, so that he can be reached. He can reach many people across wide spheres. So coming to that, I think there was a lady who wrote to me, Rebecca, I believe her name is. I don't know if she's in the room, but if she is in the room, could she please send me her telephone number? So, because she wanted some advice about her mother, and I would also suggest that next time, if anybody writes to me in an email, and if it requires medical advice or somebody's life is in danger, So please send your telephone number as well, so I can then get back to you through a telephone call and assist you better, specifically with your medical condition or whatever other condition it is that you're dealing with, because emails don't seem to be fast enough to get back and help the people, because I don't know, people end up going to hospital and in illness, etc. And then who has time to check his emails when they're in hospital? Like I had somebody phone me yesterday, and they were saying that they're going to be in hospital, and they asked a question about the Shabbat. And let me give you the answer to that to the people listening over here, and of course after this event as well. That by all means, if you ever have an emergency, or whether it's not even an emergency, let's say if your parent, friend, family, somebody who needs your assistance is in the hospital, you are very well to go to the hospital on the Sabbath. You are perfectly allowed. There's no restrictions for you not to go to the hospital on a Sabbath, and therefore don't hesitate to go, and don't even ask about that. Anything that is medical related, anything that is life-threatening, Sabbath, can be, and Sabbath does allow for you to do that. So therefore, there's no question that God's law doesn't say, oh, well, let somebody die and let somebody suffer, and you just stay, and indoors. It doesn't say that. So therefore, you are allowed to do that, and by all means, please do so. And don't ask the question, why can I go? No, because you're allowed to go, so therefore don't even have to ask. And some people have to work. Some people like policemen, some people like nurses, doctors, they have to work. And absolutely, Rabbi Kefa, Torah has great room. Torah is very merciful, and Torah is all about love. To be honest, that I think people have missed I think a lot of people have missed the point. A lot of people have used the Torah, instead of being just and loving, they've used the Torah as a tool to, let me put it mildly, to threaten people, to kill people, to maybe inflict people with God's law incorrectly. To say to people, if you don't do this, you're gonna have that, etc. So this is not Torah. Torah is totally different. Torah is much about conformity to God and conformity to God's love. And God is not sitting there with a stick in his hand and ready to thrash you if you make a simple little mistake. God is very willing, and God is very able, with a very wide sphere of forgiveness. And God is always ready to forgive anybody for anything. As long as people come to God with sincerity, then God can direct them to live their life properly. And God has laws. The whole purpose of God's laws was for the people's prosperity, not for people's suffering. And this is another message that has been misconstrued by institutions, where you're supposed to suffer and where you're supposed to go through hardship only because they tell you that you're going to get it in the next world. Actually, that is a very false message, because neither of our forefathers, and I like you to go look and check for yourselves and read any Bible you like, any version, any translation of any Bibles out there, where Abraham happens to be a poor man, and Abraham's children happen to be poor, and our kings happen to be poor, our other people happen to be poor. None of that is true. And again, the picture of Jesus that is presented by the church at large is that Jesus was a poor man, and he was, had no home, and he was, wandering the wilderness. That is a totally false picture of Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus was not poor. His family was very influential, and his family's background was connected to the kings. You see, Christians have no hard time believing that Jesus is king. Yet they believe in a king who is a pauper. So, absolutely, Rabbi Kefa. Abraham was never in a soup line, neither Jesus, but people have an easy time believing that Jesus is king. But they never question, if Jesus is king, how come he's a pauper? How come he doesn't have, shelter? And how come he's just running around? So the message that is presented by the church at large, unfortunately, whether, it's out of ignorance, whether it's out of agenda-based, is to keep people suppressed and just feed into the church, but never feed into the people. Really, Jesus' family was very wealthy, and his adopted father was from a very wealthy background as well. His mother was, my goodness, his mother, if you read up about his mother, and I wrote the book called Vayekhi, Yahushua, son of David, son of Dawood. And I wrote that book in which I basically stated that Jesus' mother, she came from a very influential background. And let me just give you the proper name of the book, the Beit Yehoshua. It was Beit Yehoshua, son of Zadok, son of Dawood, or son of David. So Beit Yehoshua, the son of Zadok, the son of David. In that particular book, Jesus' mother was actually the daughter of one of the richest men in Jerusalem. Now you think about it for a second. If his daughter came from the richest man in Jerusalem, would she be from a poor background? It's like let me tell you the analogy. His daughter was like today's Mukesh Ambani. Mukesh Ambani is one of the richest men in the world, and he's not a billionaire. He's a trillionaire. His wealth runs into trillions. So I don't know. You could probably call him a gazillionaire. And he just married his daughter called Aisha. Aisha was his daughter. He just got married with a very lavish wedding. You could probably see it on YouTube. But the thing is that this is what we're talking about. This man, Miriam's father, Mary's father, was like Mukesh Ambani of his day in Jerusalem. He was that influential and rich. So do you think that she will be poor? This is just laughable, the kind of theology that is presented in the churches. However, you got to forgive them for their ignorance and for their this nonchalant attitude that Jesus came from a poor family. And so therefore you must be, since Jesus was poor, somehow you have to be poor as well. It's absolutely not true. Absolutely not true at all. And Jesus didn't go around telling everybody to live in poverty either. So again, a lot of misteachings out there, and probably sometimes from sincere folks, but we really need to look at what is right and what is wrong, and based on that we live our life. And look, let me be very frank to you. I don't care if people out there don't believe in a chosen people. Like people out there think that they can do it by themselves and they don't need to be, part of Israel. And I'm not talking about Israel as a land. I'm talking about Israel as a spiritual nation, as a people. That's fine. Let them do it on their own. However, God doesn't lie. And if God doesn't lie, then, you'd have to throw the Bible in fire and burn it and believe that God lied when he said that I'm going to choose a nation and I'm going to choose a people for my inheritance. So that's what we're dealing with really today. And so based on that, God doesn't lie. God has a chosen people. God has, his covenants with his people, and God's going to restore everything back. Otherwise, what the heck we're doing what we're all doing over here? Just, searching for another God that conforms to my will and my way of thinking? No. If that was the case, I think none of us would have any hope. So at least we have hope in the God that doesn't lie, the God that tells the truth. So having said that, it's very important for us to know is how do we come into line with that God? And as I said, God has standards. God has standards. God has different standards within his scriptures for different people, because he doesn't, although his standard is one, but he allows leniency within those standards. In other words, if a rich man was able to, in the old days when we had the temple, if a rich man was able to give a bull for a sacrifice, he didn't ask a poor man to give a bull for a sacrifice that's going to cost him $5,000. He asked the poor man to just give flour, maybe even less. So a lot less than a bull. So God has different standards for different people to conform to him. Therefore, it wasn't the same. But nevertheless, God allowed that poor person to succeed as well, to be blessed, to be happy, to have a great life. Again, poor people didn't come poor because God made them poor. They became poor through their own choices. So therefore today, we see today that everyone that lives has a choice to be successful, then make money. Now notice I said to be successful and then make money, not to make money and then be successful. No, you've got to be successful, then you make your money, or you can be unsuccessful and not make anything. And so you can be in the soup line. Therefore, that's a choice that people have to make. You see, when I came to America, I see people over here on the roadside, holding a card and saying homeless or please help me. And I see some young people, good looking, healthy people, they're holding a card. And I'm thinking, what is the matter with these people? They're looking completely fine. They're looking healthy, and they're asking people to give them money so they can just keep living like that. You see, this is the problem in our society, is that these people, they could, they have many areas of their life they can improve in, but they don't want to. They don't want to do that. They want to be standing on the road and collect $1 from every, going passenger, and then they can, maybe make, I don't know, maybe they make $50 a day or something, and for them that's a good day, and they get used to that. And then so through their own habits, through their own personal habits, whether it's to do with drug habits or drinking or whatever abuses, intoxicant abuses they take, that's what drives most of those people on the roads. Because I don't see any loving parents are not going to kick their children out who are 20 years old or something. They don't kick their children out. So to me, it's sometimes difficult to fathom why these people are on the road. Unless they threw themselves out. In other words, they put themselves on the street. And a lot of the times it happens. Now, coming back to this, last week I spoke about a couple of laws, if you remember. I spoke about some laws of God, and I kind of looked at them in some detail. And today I'm going to again look at something, but before I do, I'm going to just look at the Parsha, Torah-Prosperity, Vayekhi, and he lived, Bereshit 47, 28 to 50, and the Haftorah portion in that is 1 Kings 2, chapter 2, 1 to 12. It says here in verse 28 of book of Genesis, which is the 47 chapter of Genesis, it says, and Jacob and Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim 17 years, so the length of Yaakov's life was 147 years. And when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, now if I have found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Mitzrayim, but let me lie with my avot, with my fathers. You shall carry me out of Mitzrayim, Egypt, and bury me in their burial place. And he said, I will do as you have said. Now, this is amazing, this little chapter. I'm going to come back to this chapter, but let me go on. It says, and then he said, swear to me, and he swore to him. So Israel bowed himself on the head of his bed, on the head of the bed. And then then we go into chapter 48. And chapter 48, as you know, it speaks about the blessings, and it says, and it's all about the blessings. And in verse 16 it says, the Malach who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, let my name be named upon them, and the name of my avot, fathers, Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. In other words, here Jacob was commanding his children and saying to them that when you bless, use the name of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his name, or Israel. So these are the three names that should be used in blessing the children of Israel. And not only the children of Israel, everybody else that attaches to Israel as a spiritual nation should be blessed in that name for their blessing. So this is all about blessing over here. And then it goes further, and it talks about Joseph, after that says, and when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. So what Jacob did, he crossed his hands, and he put the hand on one son, Ephraim, and one on Manasseh, and he crossed it the wrong way. In other words, he made like a little cross, and he simply, wanted to bless the younger more than the older, and Joseph was a little bit upset because Joseph was like, well, my other son is older. Surely he should get the higher blessing. And Jacob was, no, I know what I'm doing. Let me do what I'm supposed to do. So Jacob goes on to bless the younger more, and he blesses him And so from that we understand that Ephraim gets a double portion of the blessing. So, because it says, in verse 18, it says, not so, and Joseph said to his father, not so, my father, but this one is the Bechor, firstborn. This is the older. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations. Melo Hagoim. Listen to this now carefully. This might, wake up some people who are still sleeping. When Jacob gave this blessing, I was looking at this, rather astonished. Because today we have many billionaires in America, and some people believed, some people going back, maybe 100 years or so, there were certain theologians who believed that America and England, they were the Ephraim and Manasseh of the Bible. So they believed that these nations were the two nations that Jacob spoke about. But in reality, that was the belief of one group of people. I think the man's name was Arnold, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And he had a theology going on that these two are Ephraim and Manasseh, but I disagree with that altogether. I want you to look at who is Manasseh and who is Ephraim. Ephraim is spread in the world, but Ephraim is in the east. And I want you to look at the nation of India. India today has 101 billionaires. It's the fourth largest nation of billionaires. And I can tell you categorically that the richest man doesn't live in Mexico. From what you have probably been reading on the internet, the richest man lives in Mexico. If you type in, internet, who's the richest, they'll tell you, oh, this guy, living in Mexico is a telecoms owner. No. The richest man lives in India. And that is Mukesh Ambani, the guy I spoke about before. He's not a billionaire, he's a trillionaire, gazillionaire. That's the guy I'm speaking about. Do you seriously think that Jacob's prophecy would fall on America, England, or India? Think about it. We have a gazillionaire over there, right? And so that is where Ephraim is. Ephraim is in the east, not in the west. But, of course, through migrations, and admitted, through migrations, Ephraimites have headed to the west. Like, some of them ended up in UK, in France, in other countries, for sure. In America as well. But the majority of Ephraimites are still in the east. And therefore, we even have the tribes of Judah in the east. But we have Judah over here, we have Judah over here, we have Benjamin over here, but we also have Judah in the east also. So having said that, why would Jacob be giving a double portion of blessing? And, you're not going to find, because in the TV, when you look, oh, India's a poor nation, people haven't got clothes on, that is a false picture of the media. When you look at India's wealth, and you look at the gold they put on their temples, you will get to realize that India is a very rich country. Only that, it's not seen, because you don't live there. And India has a very large population, so it's very hard to gauge from a distance how the population is, because surely if you've got 101 billionaires, well, where is that wealth in India? Think about it for a moment. And we've got a gazillionaire over there, so what does that mean? That means that Jacob's blessing actually fell to the east, not to the west. But, yeah, sure, of course there may be some Ephraimites here, but to say, like that guy Arnold said that, oh, the Britain and based on British, using the word British, he said British in the Hebrew means covenant man. Therefore, these two nations, America and British, are Ephraim and Manasseh. And a lot of people believe that today. Did you know that a lot of people today believe that America is Ephraim and England is Manasseh? A lot of people believe that. But there you go. You see, that's belief. A lot of people believe those two things, but neither of them are true. They're not true, because the Ephraimites never really came back from the east to join on to Israel, or to join on to America, or to join on to the UK for that matter. So they are still majority in the east. And if you go to Pakistan, you will find there are people in the northwest frontier of Pakistan that go with the title of Yusufzai. Yusufzai over there means children of Yusuf. And you'll find them there in different areas. So how come they didn't end up in America? I actually happened to speak with a few of them when I was there not too long ago, which is kind of interesting. So coming back to the verse, let's look at the spiritual aspect of this verse. And it says here it says as follows, and Jacob lived in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. So he lived for 147 years of age. When the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, now if I have found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh. Now, of course, in the translation I've written thigh, but really under his, putting under his thigh meant put it under the what we term, the male parts. So you put the hand under the male parts and deal kindly with it. That was how the ancients did this swearing. You had to put it under the male parts, the place of fertility and the place of where the generations come from, where the children come from. And he says, please do not bury me in Mitzrayim. Now, I just want you to focus and see from the angle I'm going to show you something. When the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph. Now let's juxtapose this and change this. Israel here, now representative by, let's take this to Jesus' time, Yeshua's time. And here it says he called his son Joseph. So God here sending his son Jesus, imagine now him for Joseph's son. And said to him, now if I found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Mitzrayim. So if you imagine here that Jacob is about to die, here Jacob is Israel. Now let's juxtapose this with Messiah. Messiah comes and the Messiah dies and the Messiah is raised. He's raised back after 3 days. And who dies at that point? Israel dies, because Israel does not deal with him favorably. And so therefore Israel dies and his son lives, and his son goes on living as he does today, and he reaches out to all the nations in the world. This is the prophecy that you see within here. But it's well hidden. It's well hidden and it's very deep and it's very hard to understand because we read this literally and will never get it. If we read this literally, we will never get this prophecy. Really, it's speaking about Israel as a nation being dispersed and dead. And let's be frank and honest. For 2,000 years, Israel dispersed as a nation and was dead. Although the land became alive this century, but where are the people? Still dispersed. So therefore, this prophecy still applies today. That Joseph, here, exchange Joseph for Jesus. Joseph becomes Jesus, and the nation of Israel that did not deal kindly with Joseph. Remember the 10 sons that did not deal kindly with Joseph, and therefore Joseph could have punished them but didn't. And it shows that, as I was telling you last week, that Joseph was dealing with 2 particular laws, and based on those 2 laws, he did not want to deal wrongly or unjustly with his brothers. So that's why he didn't punish them. And so therefore those 2 laws that I spoke about last week, and you can go back to last week's lecture and listen to it, help you. It's on YouTube and in Facebook as well. It will help you there to understand what the message was. Here what we are seeing now is that Joseph, here juxtapose Joseph with Jesus. Jesus came and the nation did not accept him, so the nation died. Just as Israel / Jacob was dying, the nation died and dispersed. And then what did Joseph say? Please put your hand under my thigh, put it under my groin, and do not bury me, do not leave me here. He didn't say don't bury me here, so don't leave me here basically, because he was buried over there temporarily. When I say buried, they kept him in as they did in the old days. They kept the body and the bones in a jar. And, first they'll keep the bones in a coffin, then they'll transfer them into a jar. So he was taken back to Egypt. Now listen to this carefully, that when Jesus of Nazareth, when he was dead and he rose, and he therefore sent his message to the world. But Where is Israel? Israel is still dead, technically, but Israel is living in the nations. If Israel is living in the nations, what was the command to Joseph? That do not leave me in the nation of Egypt. So where are we today? Technically, spiritually, we're in Egypt today. We're all over the world. Technically, that's Egypt. And what did Joseph's commandment was from his father? Don't leave me in Egypt. Therefore, the commandment from God to us is, I'm not going to leave you in Egypt, in the world. I'm going to gather you back to your land. That is very, very critical and very, very important to understand. That is the message that is conveyed in this Parsha, which means, and he lived. In other words, we as a people are going to live again, but in the land. Right now, we are technically I say, not physically, technically we are dead because we as Israel did not accept the Messiah. At the time of the Messiah, we rejected him. Because we rejected him, therefore the punishment that came upon us was a dispersion into the nations, and therefore technically that is Egypt. Now, I wanted you to understand that, and I know it's a little convoluted. It may be a little hard to understand, but that, by the way, is all in Genesis chapter 47, verse 29. I want you to read it in your own times and sit and ask God for giving you that revelation and understanding, because that is really, it only comes through revelation. It's not theology. It's not dogma. It's not theology. It's revelation. If God gives you the revelation, the Holy Spirit reveals it to you, in Chokhmah shows you, then you will see this. What I'm saying is that we, here Joseph is technically not Joseph, but Yeshua, Jesus. And Israel is not Israel, Jacob, but Israel is a nation, because Jacob represents the nation. So therefore the nation rejected Joseph being Jesus, and therefore they got dispersed and they died. Now, when they go out dispersed into the world, they now are accepting the message. They're dispersed, they're accepting the message of the Messiah, and they are also teaching other people and telling other people. Therefore, when they become alive, they'll come back into the land. And they'll come back into the land in big droves. That is when Yahweh calls them, because when he says, please do not bury me in Mitzrayim, we're not just talking about Egypt as in one country. We're talking about wherever we are buried, God will raise us. And for that, I encourage you to go and read Ezekiel 37, where God tells the prophet Ezekiel that I'm going to bring my people back one by one, and I'm going to bring them back in droves, and they're going to be raised. And wherever my people are, they're going to form little sanctuaries. Wherever they are in the world, they're going to form these little sanctuaries, and they're going to be there. And I think it's so encouraging for us to go read the book of Ezekiel. I don't know about anybody else, but when I read that message, Ezekiel 37, and I heard it from the churches, it was all over the place. Oh, well, it's about the Messiah, it's about resurrection, and it's about Christians. And I was like, no, this is not about Christians, it's not about Messiah, this is not about the resurrection in the future. This is actually speaking about Israel's resurrection, Israel's future, Israel that is dispersed, and Israel's, coming back into the land again and their inheritance. That's what Ezekiel 37 speaks about. It's a beautiful passage. When you read it, it says, the hand of Yahweh was upon me, and carried me out into the ruach of Yahweh, and set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones, and caused me to pass by them round about. And behold, there were many in the open valley, and behold, they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, O Master Yahweh, only you know. And again he said to me, prophesy upon these bones, and say to them, O you dry bones, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Master Yahweh to these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall have life. What is that Parsha we were just dealing with? And they lived. Vayekhi. This is what's going to happen in the future, by the way. For those of you, be encouraged that God is going to raise us. Even if we are dead, God's going to bring us back from the grave, and He's going to put sinews and put flesh back on us, and He's going to resurrect us back and take us back to the land. Even if we're buried outside, He will take us back to the land. This is the message of this Parsha, that do not fret, do not despair that you're in the nations. I will take you back from Egypt. Wherever you are, God will take us back. And God's promises, as I said, God is not a liar. God doesn't lie. So we don't need to worry about what anybody else says. We need to keep our focus on God, and we need to keep it right there that, we're going to be resurrected back fully and greatly and restored back to our land, to our forefathers' land, and it's just amazing. But having said that, I want to take you to another place of a place of blessing. In other words, what do we do in the nations? Are we just supposed to, just run around, hope for the best, or can we do something about it? Well, let me tell you something. That God has given us some powerful, powerful laws. But before I delve into those, let me take a sip of my water. Baruch Hashem, Master Yeshua and Master Yahweh. Toda Rabbi. Baruch Ta Yahweh Eloheinu Melech Olam, Sheh HaKol Niyeh B'Davro. Blessed are you, Yahweh, our Elohim, our God, King of the universe, who has given us, who has created everything through His Word. I thank you, Baruch Hashem, Yahweh. So having said that, we look now at what is, a lot of people come to me, and I speak to people all the time, telephone, emails, and, personal conversations. And people ask me, there are our people out there, and they're having problems with their daughters, with their sons, with family, brothers, sisters, etc. What is the answer to this? How do we deal with it? This is a question that was asked me sincerely by somebody yesterday, by one particular person. But this is a question that comes in different forms. Usually is the same thing. That how do I deal with somebody who doesn't like me, who maybe hates me, doesn't want to speak to me, hates my guts, hates my clothes, hates my looks, hates everything about me, etc., etc. It goes on like this. And so how do we deal with this? Let me give you the solution to that today on this forum, because, you might be thinking, well, Rabbi Simon's going to hide it and keep it to himself and not give it to us, and we have to phone him or chase him on email. No, you don't have to do none of that. I'll give it to simply over here. There's only one solution to that, and it's a beautiful solution. You bless them. You bless them daily. Whoever hates you, whoever dislikes you, whoever doesn't want to talk to you, who, hates your guts, bless them, love them. And you might say, well, how am I supposed to love them from a distance? Very easy. Whenever you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you give thanks to God for your life. You say, as you do, thank you, Lord, or thank you, God, or whatever titles you use, or you use the name, thank you, Yahweh, thank you, Jesus. Whatever you do, you give thanks to God every day, and then you bless those people. You then start blessing them. I bless so-and-so, and I wish them good. And I wish them well, and you show love for them. I love them. I don't have a problem with them. I wish them well. I bless them. I bless them, bless them, bless them. You do that. You will see the power of blessing. You will see the power of love, that it will return back to you. Whatever you give, whatever you will receive. Write it down. Again, I'll say it. Whatever you give out is that which you will receive. If you give out love and blessings, you will receive love and blessings back. If you give out hate, anger, intolerance, you will receive anger, hate, and intolerance back. So be very careful of what you give out. Because majority of the times, we find that, we, in our cultures that we live, in the different areas of our life, we are taught tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye, fist for a fist and a kick for a kick. You raise your fist in the air and, kick them and all that and hit them. No, that is not the message of the Torah. That message is actually very mistaken and wrongly ascribed to the Torah. Torah's message is justice and love. And Jesus, when he came, Yeshua, when he came, he said, this is what he said. He said, do unto others as you would do to yourself. So, what does that mean? Do I want to hate myself, or do I want to love myself? Do I want to bless myself, or do I want to curse myself? That is the understanding. So, when the Torah says eye for an eye, the Torah is not talking about punishing somebody with a fist for a fist. That is the wrong understanding that you got from the churches, you got from the synagogues. That is totally an incorrect understanding. Torah simply says that justice needs to be measured. So when somebody has done a wrong, we have courts in our countries, and the courts will measure out justice. That is basically according to the law of the land. But our law stated that justice had to be measured according to the severity of the crime. In other words, a thief would get justice according to a thief. He wouldn't be hung and killed. But in our nations today, a thief could die. Somebody could be killed for something that the penalty is not death. So therefore, penalty has to be just and fair. But penalty always has to take into consideration love, which is very important. And this is why you do not find, people are very quick to say, oh, Torah says eye for eye, tooth for tooth. But people don't realize that the Torah and our history never give you a single case in which we took somebody's eyes out or took their teeth out. Can anybody tell me where you see that we took somebody's teeth out and took somebody's eyes out? I have never read a single case in Israel's history in the past or in the diaspora where we have deliberately gone and cut somebody's hands off, took somebody's teeth out, or taken their eye out, or eye for an eye. I've never seen a single case. I've read many books. My bookshelf is full of Jewish books, ancient antiquity, ancient history. There is not a single story anywhere by any rabbi that says we, conducted justice on somebody and we said take an eye for an eye or tooth for a tooth. Never happened. Why? This is why Christian world at large and general world at large is totally confused about our Torah and what our laws are. Ignorance is rampant in the society where we live, and Torah never commands us to take somebody's eyes out or punish somebody by knocking their 32 teeth out. So that's the unfortunate thing that's happening out there, is that Torah commands us to love our neighbor, and the Torah commands us to be just to our people and the people around us. The Torah actually commands us to love even the foreigner and treat them the same as us. But that you'll never hear from most people out there. And when Yeshua, Jesus, when he came on the scenes, he uttered the same message. Do unto others as you would do unto yourself. By the way, that message isn't new. It's an old message, because that message came from the rabbis of old, and that message came out of the Torah, out of the book of, of all the books that people don't read, the book of Leviticus. That's where the message came out of. So having understood that, it is very important that if you want to resolve your relationships, now is a very good time to resolve your relationships. Christmas is around the corner. Today is 22nd of December. Christmas is in 3 days' time. Great time to resolve your relationships. Love the people that hate you. Love them and bless them daily. And you will see that the like will return to you. Now, I want to also speak about another law today. And before I speak about that law, because what did Matthew chapter 5 verse 44 and Luke chapter 6 verse 28 say? Bless those who curse you and pray for those who mistreat you. Love your enemies, pray for those that curse you. But you see, pray for those that curse you. Now, if somebody doesn't like you, hates you, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have to physically say, oh, I curse you, I curse you, I curse you. They don't have to say that. But when they dislike you, that is technically like a curse, that they hate you. So you love them back, bless them daily, and that's what you're commanded to do. You're commanded to do that, by the way. It's a commandment, and not just a commandment, it's something we're to do. And the Messiah had taught us. What did the Messiah teach us? He went a little bit further, and he said, if somebody strikes you on your cheek, present the other cheek. If they ask you for, if they ask you something, take it off and give it to them. So these are the steps further that many people today don't practice them. They just think, oh, it's just a, airy-fairy spiritual statement. But really, it's not an airy-fairy. This is a golden rule. The golden rule is to treat everybody with respect. Problem is this, that we live in a world of intolerance today. And because we live in a world of intolerance, well, if somebody is gay, I must hate them. If somebody is transgender, I must hate them because the people around me say so. If somebody is, I don't know, fat, I've got to call them a fatty. I've got to hate them because they're not slim like everybody else. This is the problem that we have created in our society, is that we have been indoctrinated with hate. If he's gay, you got to hate them because he's not doing marriage like everybody else, heterosexual. If they change their sex, you got to hate them because why did they change their sex? Why they're not like us, etc. We are not commanded to hate anybody. Whether they are gay, whether they are transgender, whether they are male, female, whatever choices people make, we are never commanded to hate them. We must learn to love the people. And you will find that those that will hate you will be the ones that are intolerant. Now, the intolerant people out there, they will simply get intolerance back, because hate can only bring back hate. It will never bring back love. Love will bring back love. If you give love, you will receive love. If you give hate, you will receive hate. It says borderline. This is Torah law, by the way, and people call it karma. But you can call it karma. You can give it whatever name you desire. It is Torah law. It's called the law of sowing and reaping. What you give out is what you will receive. That is the law of sowing and reaping. And that is a Torah law, by the way. It's rooted in our scriptures that we have to learn to love everybody around us. We were never commanded, and I quote, you can pick up any book of the Bible in the first 5 books where our law is set. Those 5 books are the most important in our Bible compared to all the rest of the books. If we had no other book in the Bible and only those 5 books, they never command us to go and push our religious dogma or our religious commandments on anybody else. Then God never tells us to go out and punish the people and force them to follow the way you follow. It doesn't say that anywhere for us. There is no commandment that says that I have to take my commandments that God has given us as a people and push them onto my neighbor. Because my neighbor maybe is Muslim, maybe is I don't know, maybe Buddhist, maybe something, maybe Hindu. We're not commanded that. So take note. There is no commandment that says go in twos and knock on people's doors and give leaflets and say, you got to do the Sabbath. You got to wear the zitzit. You got to do this. There's no such thing. So therefore, what is given to us belongs to us. And if people want to take it in love, then they are welcome to come and take it. But there is no commandment that says that I have to force what God gave to my forefathers onto other people. So that is love, by the way. And God said to treat my neighbor as I would treat myself. Love my neighbor, by the way. And love my neighbor. He didn't say that if your neighbor is Hindu, hate him because he's got, little statues in his home and he worships statues, he must hate him. I'm not taught hate. Therefore, I mustn't hate anybody. And you mustn't either. This is the law that we live by. And having said that, Jesus amplified the law in many different respects. And he showed that the people were wrong because people were dogmatically following rabbis and wrong kind of teachings where they bring this. You remember in John chapter 8, they bring this woman to Jesus and they say to him, stone this woman because she committed adultery. They say, what shall we do to this woman? The law says that we must stone her. You see, this is how the law is misrepresented. Because they bring this woman and they say, what shall we do to her? The law of Moses says we must stone her. But what does he do? He does nothing. He just, he doesn't even answer them first. He just stoops down and just writing on the floor. He doesn't want to even speak to them because, again, people have taken our law and misapplied it and tried to punish people with that law, which wasn't commanded in that particular way. In other words, it was totally, what they were doing was unjust. And he says so. And therefore, at the end, he turns around and says, Which one of you have never committed a sin? You pick up the stone and hit her with the stone. I'm paraphrasing now. And what do the people do? They look at him, they look at the woman, and one by one they all leave. Why? Because everybody had committed a sin in their life. So they cannot see themselves as, the righteous people that they thought they were. And by the way, they walk away because they were technically not righteous themselves. The people who bring a woman and present her before the Messiah and say, stone her, do you seriously think those are righteous people? Think about it for a second. Are they righteous people? That means these people are looking for enjoyment. It's like when the Romans, they had their big arenas and they brought Christians into the arenas and they fed them to the lions and they killed them and everybody was like cheering on like some kind of game. That's what these Jews were doing. These Jews did the same thing. They brought this woman and they wanted to make this a show and a game and a laughter so that they could have a little laugh and a little show and to entertain themselves. And the Messiah turned around and refused their entertainment. No, I'm not here to entertain you. And I'm not here to misapply the law. This is not what the law says. And this is not how the law is conducted. This is why I say that our law of the Torah has been misused, misapplied, and misappropriated by the nation at large. And that's a fact on the ground. Now, coming back to how do we better ourselves? Is there anything in the law or is there anything in our scriptures that tells us that we are allowed to better ourselves? And of course, there's many statements there, but I'm going to take you to one particular law. Is called the law of assumption. Anybody heard of law of assumption? I'm pretty sure that you've never heard of it through the Bible, as I'm going to present it today. There is actually such a thing as a law of assumption. Anybody can give me a definition of the law of assumption? Anybody have a definition? If not, I'll give you the definition. Law of assumption. Assumption meaning something. Law of assumption is simply something legally. Now we're talking about a legal jargon here, I guess, is what is assumption or law of assumption. And I'm going to give you the definition of what Google gives you, which is assumption of a let's see. Let me find the legal definition. Legal definition will be the best one for assumption, because I don't want to make something up. An assumption is a statement that is presumed to be true without concrete evidence to support it. In the business world, assumptions are used in a wide variety of situations to enable companies to plan and make decisions in the face of uncertainty. Okay? So let me repeat that again. This is from Google's search. An assumption is a statement that is presumed to be true without concrete evidence to support it. I'll stop there. Then, of course, it goes on. Then in the business world, companies use assumptions to forecast, what the company is going to be doing in the face of uncertainty and how they should approach uncertainty, etc. So I thought that was a fairly good definition. Assumption is something that is true without concrete evidence. Like, for instance, as I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and they said, I like to have a nice car. And I said, sure. I like to have, my car is all breaking down. My car is all falling apart. I like to have I want to get my car repaired. I said, why even bother repairing your car? Why not ask for a new car? Why not ask for another car? And she's like, really? I said, yeah, you can ask for another car. But she's like, how? And I presented the law of assumption to this person. They obviously never heard of this before, and now I'm presenting it to you as well, as our people. There is something called the law of assumption. By the way, it is 100% scriptural, this law of assumption. And you might say, how does that work, Rabbi? How does it work that I can have a car when I don't have the evidence to support it, that I don't have the means? Like you might say, well, how am I going to get a $40,000 car or a $20,000 car when I don't have the means? And I'm going to tell you, you don't need to have the means. You got to have the law of assumption working for you. And that's my statement. And that my statement I will clarify further, and I will clarify further by a definition through scripture. Let me give you now scripture, and so you can note it down for your reference point. Let's see. So somebody wants to have a car, right? But how can they have a car if they don't have the money? And you might think this rabbi has gone nuts. He's gone crazy. He wants me to have a car, but I don't even have the money to get a car. What the heck is he talking about? What does he know about finances? So there'll be people talking like that, I'm pretty sure. Let me take you to the book of Solomon, Song of Songs. Let me pull it up here. Song of Songs in my copy. Okay, song. Let me do a little search on here. See if I can pull it up. Song of Songs. Oh, maybe it's listed as SOS. Yep, SOS in my reference. Okay, SOS, Song of Songs, chapter 3, verse 1. Let me read it for you. By night on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I found him not. Okay, that's your car, by the way. Read car. At night in my bed, I wanted a new car, but I could not find my car. So I slept and I dreamed of my car. I saw myself in the car. That is the way you get your new car. Did everybody get it? Or do you want me to explain it further? Let me read up the rest of the statement. Okay, everybody went silent. It's like shocking. What the heck? I never read that before, like this. Okay, let me read it again. By night, on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I found him not. Read here anything you desire. Read here anything you desire. You desire a car? Read a car. You desire a wife? Read a wife. You desire a husband? Read a husband. Anything you desire. Anything you desire is in your hands, but at bed at night. Got it? Thank you very much. Women are getting it, but the men are still kind of lost a little bit. Let me read it further, and I'll explain it a little bit further. Let me read it further, because I think it requires a little bit further study. Let me require a little bit further study. Okay, it's very important. This, by the way, was King Solomon, right? This is the book written by King Solomon. King Solomon, let me make a pertinent statement. King Solomon knew the law of assumption, and he used it. He was the richest man of his time. He was a Mukesh Ambani, the Indian richest gazillionaire of his time. So King Solomon was a gazillionaire of his time, technically, because he understood the law of assumption. Now, if you understand this law, you can use it for your favor. If you want a car, when you go to bed at night, think of that car and think of sitting in that car and sleep on it. Every day you do this, you will get your car. You want a husband? Sleep on it. Think of your husband every day. You will get your husband. You want a wife? Think of your wife every night. Sleep on it. You will get your wife. This is a law that we have rooted in scriptures, by the way. It is our law, and we apply it, and we get it. I actually used this law years ago. I'll give you a testimony in a minute. You will love this testimony. Years ago, when I was unmarried, I had a desire. I got married at the time, and my wife wasn't still with me. She was miles away, and I had a desire to have my own house. Like some of you, I was struggling. I was working, and I had not enough money to buy a house, and I was living with my cousin. And some of you live with your mothers and fathers. I was living with my cousin at the time, and I said to myself, I want a house, and I slept on it. Every night I slept on my house. And guess what happened? I got a 2-bedroom house. I wanted a 2-bedroom house, by the way, and I got a 2-bedroom house. When I got the 2-bedroom house and my wife came, and I was with my wife, and I said to my wife one day, I said, we're going to have a 3-bedroom house. But I didn't have the money to get a 3-bedroom house. She said, She said to me, how are you going to get a 3-bedroom house? I said, don't worry about it. We're going to get a 3-bedroom house. I slept on a 3-bedroom house every day. I slept on it. Every day I went to bed focusing on my 3-bedroom house. And guess what? I got a 3-bedroom house. After I got a 3-bedroom house, I said to my wife one day, and this is English people will understand, people who live in England will understand what I'm saying. I said to my wife one day, I want to get a bungalow. And a bungalow you call over here a ranch. I said, I want to get a bungalow. These are expensive little, little homes. They're expensive. They can come in 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, etc. Very expensive in England. And people who live in England will tell you that. Here, you call them ranch style. Everything is downstairs. So I said to my wife, we want to get a bungalow. My wife was like, how are we going to get a bungalow? I said, don't worry about it. It will come. So I slept on a bungalow every night. You get it? And guess what happened? 2 years, less than 2 years from that time, I got a bungalow. I bought a beautiful little bungalow and I extended it and it became a beautiful 5-bedroom bungalow. That was my home before I left the faith of Islam. So the chapter is chapter 3 and the verse is 1 onwards. So let me read out the rest of it. By night on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loves. Well, my soul loved to have a house. So I just dreamed of my house. Every night I dreamed of my house. I sought him, but I found him not. Well, of course, I'm not going to get the house the first night, so I have to keep thinking about it every day, keep dreaming about it, and I will rise now and go about the city in the streets and in the broadways. I will seek him whom my soul loves. In other words, you've got to be focused on it. Not just at night. At the daytime, you focus on it. I want that house. I want that house. I want that car. I want that car. I see myself sitting and driving in that car. And then what happens is that it comes to you. That is the law of assumption, by the way. You're assuming something to be true without the evidence to show for it. If somebody said to me, Simon, my name was Muhammad in the old days, they'll say, Muhammad, where is your, or Altaf, where is your car? And I'll say, it hasn't come yet, but it's coming. It's coming. So, I had no evidence to show a car, but it was coming, and it sure did come. I had no evidence to show for the house, it was coming, and it came. So therefore, that is the law, by the way, of assumption. It says, the watchmen that go about the city found me, to whom I said, did you see him whom my soul loves? It was but a little that I passed from them, but I found him whom my soul loves. It was but a little that I passed from them, but I found him whom my soul loves. I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her that conceived me. I put you under an oath, O you daughters of Jerusalem. So up to verse 4. That, by the way, chapter 3, Song of Solomon's, verse 1 to 4 is 100% law of assumption. Here, whatever you desire, do this. Like what I did. I went to bed every night dreaming of my house that I didn't have. And guess what? I received my dream. So you do the same. No, we don't call it faith. Faith is a different law, by the way. There is another law that is named for faith. That is called the law of attraction. That is not totally different. Law of assumption these are two distinct laws. There's a law of assumption, there's a law of attraction. But again, you see, people are kind of convoluted between the two. Some people think it's the same. It's not the same. It's not faith. This is actually a totally different law. It's called the law of assumption. It's a right name to it, but a lot of people mistake it for faith. This is not faith. Faith has nothing to do with it. Law of assumption is everything to do with it. You want a house? Go to bed every night and dream your house. See yourself sitting in that house. See yourself sleeping in that house. And guess what? That house will come to you. I write it down for you. Write my name down. Rabbi Simon taught us this. And if you get it wrong, you can come back and tell me. You'll never go wrong. This is our law. And our law will never be broken. No one can break our law. Our law is there. It's in the universe. It's permanent. It can never change. No one can ever change it. This is God's universal law for everybody, whoever you are. So therefore, I highly encourage you, for those of you who are struggling with relationships, wanting a wife, wanting a husband, wanting a car, wanting a house, doesn't matter what you want. As long as it's just, as long as it's fair, as long as it's permissible, as long as it's within the law of God, you can have it. That's how simple it is. So with that in mind, I hope, any questions right now? Or are you all clear with this? Everybody clear with this? I hope you're all clear what I just taught you. Okay, great. So if you're clear with it, very, very good. Now start practicing it. Yes, Eddie, absolutely you can. It's all into your mind. You can. I mean, you want a house and a car together? Do it together. Go to bed at night, think of the house and think of the car. By the way, I did too. Yeah, I did like you. I was like, not just the house, I wanted the car as well. And guess which car I wanted? I wanted a BMW. You know, when I was there in England, I said, I want a BMW and I want a house. So guess what I had parked in my house? I had parked a black BMW and a house. So if it happened to me, it can happen to you. But again, you know, it's not like, you know, it can only happen to me. It can happen to you as well. Put your, you know, sleep on it. Every night sleep on it. Just like the scripture says, sleep on it. Sleep on it. It says sleep on it every night. And what did it say? It says, I will rise now and go about the city in the streets and in the broad ways. I will seek him whom my soul loves. In other words, when I woke up every day in England, when I woke up every day, my car was in my head and my house was in my head. Thinking about it. I'm going to have my house. I'm going to have my car. I don't care what my auntie says. I don't care what my cousins say. I'm going to have both. And guess what? I got both. And one day, you know, I was dealing with my friend, a friend of mine. His name's Winston, bless him. And he said to me, you know, I got my first job. And he said to me, well, what's next? I said, well, next is going to be the next job, of course. And he said, how are you going to do this? How's the next job going? I said, don't worry about it. He said, what salary are you going to do? And I said, well, I think that, you know, how about that my next job should be $25,000, for argument's sake. And he said, okay. I said, sure. He said, okay, so I go get my next job, $25,000. And so I say to him, hey, I got my next job. He's like, great. He says, what's next? I said, another job. He said, what's the next salary? I said, I think it should be about $35,000. And it should be, he said, what about time? Because, you know, you can say something, but what about time? Because he was like very succinct about time. He's like, well, if you say $35,000 and it takes you 10 years, that's not really prediction, is it? That's nothing. Anybody can do that. I was like, no, in 8 months, I should have $35,000 job. He said, okay, we will see. 8 months hadn't even passed yet. Full 8 months hadn't passed yet. I was into the 8th month. And I got my next job, $35,000 working for Goldman Sachs in London, Fleet Street, London. Go check the address out. They still have their offices there. I was working for Goldman Sachs. I said to my friend, $35,000 on the table, Goldman Sachs is my job. He's like astonished. He came to me, said to me, okay, what's next? He said, this must be your limit. You've done it. You got there. That's it. You're done. I said, no, I'm not done yet. He said, so what's next? He said, let's place a bet that you can't get any further. I said, yeah, we can place a bet. Pound each we bet. I said, let's place a bet. I can get further. He said, what you gonna tell me? I said, let me be more ambitious with you. Let me be a bit more, you know, even more than before. He said, okay, give it to me. Throw it at me. I said, I'm going to be in America. He says, no way you're not going to be in America. I said, I'm going to be working in America next. He says, no chance. You're British, you know, you got British passport. How are you going to get to America? I said, Winston, I'm going to be working in America. He said, what's your salary? He goes to me, what's your salary? I said, my salary is going to be $50,000 minimum. You know what? Within 4 months of me saying this, I just put this out. I prayed to God and I said, I'm going to work in America. That's it. I don't care. It's going to happen for me. And I put it to use. And guess what happened? This is 1997 I'm talking about. This is not now. Today, $50,000 is considered good salary. I was getting $52,000 salary in 1997, 21 years ago. And so I said to my friend 50, and he couldn't believe it. He says, no way, it's not going to happen. I said, okay, Winston, shake hands on it. He said, okay, shake hands. 3 months later, I pick up a phone and I phone a company in America and I say, I want to come and work in America. Do you have a job? And they say, yeah, we have a job, but you have to pass an interview and test. If you can pass the test, we'll give you a job. They did a test for me, a technical test through the bank that I was supposed to work for. And guess what? I was offered a job in New York City for $52,000, with increase to $60,000 in 6 months' time, with a green card in my hand. And guess where my friend's face was at that time when I told him? He couldn't believe it. He says, there's no way you can do this. He goes, what magic do you have? What magic do you have? I want to know about it. You got to teach me as well. He couldn't believe it. I made a $52,000 job in 1997 using, what I believe to be at the time this law. Now you tell me, does it work or does it not work? Think about it. Somebody like me, okay, I didn't know I was a Kohen at the time. I didn't know I was special in any particular way. Okay, all those things came later. But God has given everyone the ability to do this, not just me. And when my friend saw me, his face dropped. He's like, I can't believe this, that you can leave this country and go to America. I was offered a green card with a job, not just a job, because a bank who wanted me, they said, this is the man we want. He has the best qualifications. He is the best guy for the job. That's what the banking people said. Has anybody said that to you? They said it for me. They said, that's the man we want in our company. So this is the thing, that from both countries. And so I'm from Iran and from India and Pakistan. So having said that, I got that job in 1997 for 52. And I said, this doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop here. I was offered an $80,000 job in White Plains, New York, right? I was offered in 1997. I had a company offering me $80,000 to work in White Plains, New York. And I had to leave America because my son was ill. And I was coming back to England, and my wife said to me, honey, I'm giving you paraphrasing what my wife said. She said, what you going to do? You're going to give up your job, and you're going to, come back to England, and how are we going to live? I said to my wife, Hansi Bunzi, don't worry about it. Your husband is going to come and land in Heathrow Airport, and jobs going to line up on the street for him. She's like thinking she didn't think I'm joking. My wife was very serious with me. She said to me, I know you. She said, I know you're going to do exactly what you said. And guess what? I landed in Heathrow Airport. I found my brother, my younger brother. I found him. I said, come pick me up. I got an interview in London. I went straight to London. I had an interview in St. Paul's with a bank. I had an interview in another bank that busted later. Bank was called Bear Stearns. The Bear Stearns Bank offered me a job for $50,000 in London. I went to another bank called Nomura International Bank. They offered me a job for $100,000 in London. And I got that job, boom. And I said to my wife, there you go. Just as I said, I proved it. $100,000 job from $50,000. And my friend's face, Winston's face was, my goodness, it was like, I can't believe you can do this. He goes, how can you move from 52,000 to 100,000? I said, don't worry about it. I said, God is on my side. So this is my point. My point is this, that you are not limited, but God's law will take you to places, really, because when I came to the faith in the Messiah in 1998, I came to faith in the Messiah in that very bank where I had that job, the $100,000 job. By the way, I got the job before I got the faith. So remember that too. So God wasn't prejudiced to me. God wasn't prejudiced like saying, hey, you're a Muslim, I'm not going to give you the job. So God gave me the job, God gave me the blessings, and I took God on at face value. And God has never left me. God has never betrayed me. God has never left me. God has always been there for me. And God can be there for you. The Master Yeshua can be there for you as well. And so therefore, you need to understand that we've got to come to God with humility. I did come to God with humility. I didn't come to Him with arrogance and, pride and ego. Hey, I'm earning $100,000. You better speak to me. I wasn't like that. I came to Him in humility, and God came to me. And so I got there, and I'm pretty sure, and I can guarantee you that you can get there. Remember, sleep on it. That's the secret. And you don't need to go, molding God into something He is not, and making out God to be something He is never going to be. Sleep on it. Live a life of justice. Live a life of love. Follow and obey the Torah laws to the best of your ability. I'm not saying you won't make mistakes. Like I made mistakes, you will make mistakes. But the law is there to guide us and to guard us, both. If you follow this through, and you will give me testimony of your lives and saying, this happened for us, just as you said. It happened for us as well. And I believe it's so for you. So with that, I'm going to love you and I'm going to leave you. Have a great Shabbat. I love you all. Take care. Shabbat Shalom. Shalom Shalom. Over to you, Rabbi Kefa.
Yeah. Torah-Prosperity Kohim. If I can be heard, can I get a 1? What you guys are getting here, Mishpahah, family, whatever you want to consider yourselves in this room, what you're getting is the practicality on how to live your life. I mean, you're truly beginning to understand the necessities that are needed, the tools that you already are equipped with, but many of us are just not using them. And the title of my lecture is going to be Ability. And get this, me and the Kohen, the son of Aaron, we talk a lot. We talk a whole lot. But yesterday, ability challenge came up for me. How many of you have been noting that there's actually there's this challenge that's going out here world over about cell phone usage? Any of you ever heard of this challenge about cell phone usage? There's these challenges going on where people are actually getting paid money not to get on your cell phone. Any of you ever heard of that yet? Like these challenges. You heard of it, right? There's these challenges where they actually want to see how attached and how connected you are to your smartphones or your devices and all this, that, the other, and the third. Well, I did this challenge, and I wanted to show my wife that I had the ability to do this challenge. Well, like yesterday, Friday, being Friday, I decided not to get on my smartphone, my cell phone at all. That was the challenge, the ability, this challenge to be able to do that. And I think that's so important that we do these things to test ourselves and to see where are our limits. And I did note on the television, one of the media channels, news media channels, that they're actually giving away thousands of dollars for people who are able to do this, to detach themselves away from their smartphones and their devices, this, that, the other, and the third. You look at the facts on the ground. There's people that are employed in the Silicon Valley area, and they'll be the first to tell you that their children, their teenage children, and below don't use smartphone devices and things like this. Did you all know that? This is facts on the ground. The people that work at Silicon Valley don't allow their children to get on these devices. Isn't that something? And there was also this study, I don't know if I mentioned it to you as well, is where they did this study with infants, with adolescents and infants, to where they were talking about the way we learning capacity and able to learn. And what they did was they took a tablet, like an iPad or any kind of tablet that you can get, and they also took the old traditional toys. Any of you ever remember the traditional toys, the Build-A-Blocks and your Lego toys? Any of you familiar with these kind of toys? Some of you may have had it back in the day. Old choo-choo train that you had to pull with the little string. Any of you ever? Any of you remember these little toys? Thomas the tank engine. All these little toys, and they put these toys to one side. Yeah, you remember Thomas, your little train? You remember all of these little toys that you used to have before Wi-Fi, before all this Atari and technology that we have today? Well, they found in this study with little children and infants at that, is that, when you would show them this same technology on the smartphone, and they would actually go through it on the smartphone or on the tablet, and then they would give it to them on the tablet, and the children would play with it and meet the necessary and thinking that they understand the necessary skill, and they actually replicated that same skill with physical toys, physical blocks, to do the exact same thing. And do you know the children couldn't do it? And then on the flip side, they took a whole other subset of children and they gave them the blocks first, the physical toys first. And then they came with them with the iPad and the tablet later. And they found that these children were able to translate what they did physically over into the iPad or the tablet device. Quite interesting, really. And so from this study, a lot of people, influential people with children, just like you and I, aspire and desire and even have children, they're not allowing their children to get on these devices. And the children are like maybe in their preteens and maybe teenage years. Once they get into their teenage years, they start to stipend the amount of usage that their children can have. Yael, one of the 10, calls it muscle memory. Yeah, which is very important. There's many names for it. That's one of the scientific names that they're giving. And so I would encourage you all to do this study as well, to actually see and to test yourselves and to see where your ability is to be able to control yourself. You see, because at the end of the day, it's all about us being able to have that control over ourselves and not being controlled by outside forces. You see, because at the end of the day, what we need to realize is everything needs to be internalized, not externalized. You see, we need to be examining and re-examining what? Ourselves. But the majority of people today, their whole focus is on examining and re-examining other folks, right? All up on your Kool-Aid and they don't even know the flavor. You know what I mean? So for improvement and for success in life, you want to be successful. For me, yes, success comes in many forms. I would just like to know from everybody in the room, what do you consider success? What do you consider success? Because what you consider success is maybe not what I consider success. They're being successful. What are your thoughts on that? For me, you know what success is? For me, is if I'm happy. My happy meter. That's success. If I'm happy, I'm successful, period. You see, a lot of these are like stepping stones and blocks. In Hakoin's lecture, I tell you, much revelation was given out in his lecture today. I know it's a lot to take in. This is why I would encourage you to go back and re-examine and listen to this lecture again via YouTube. Because a lot of information maybe had went over your head, and a lot of it just needs to be repetitive. You talk about, muscle memory. Someone said, a peace in my home. That's success for this individual, which is great. Happiness and peace is very, very important to me. These are the staple mates or building blocks that you can build upon. If you're happy, anything that you do, it won't matter. You'll be successful at it. Think about it. I was watching this movie last night with my wife on Netflix. Quite interesting movie. It was this movie, a true story, about a woman in China. And what her and her husband, see what you have to do in China, right? You see, they were trying to get an apartment. And they were married. And they came up with this scheme, and this scheme is quite prevalent in China. To get a home, what they end up doing is they get a divorce to get a home. So they were trying to get this home, and so what they had to do was they had to fake a divorce. The divorce was fake, but they were still married, right? You understand what I'm saying? They faked a divorce with the state government, but technically they were still married because the marriage was, between the two of them. It's just like, in our Hebrew way, you tell a woman, you're my wife, guess what? That woman is your wife. You don't need a piece of paper for that to be legitimized. You understand what I'm saying? Now, some of these nations, it's beneficial for you to get that piece of paper because then it allots your spouse the necessary benefits and things like this, that are afforded to you having a spouse. Tax write-offs and all this other stuff. So in this story, right, guess what happens? The woman, right, they go through the formalities with the state government and they do get a divorce. It's a real divorce according to, quote unquote, the state government, state institution. But then guess what happens? The husband decides to go and marry another woman. So he actually marries another woman, and he doesn't hold up to the fake thing in order for them to get a house, apartment, or a house as we know it here in North America. So the husband ends up marrying another woman at this time. And so she spends years chasing him down and years in the legal system trying to explain to the government that no, this was a fake, this divorce was a fake divorce. It wasn't based on grounds of anything other than that we wanted a fake this divorce so that we can get a place, a abode, a house, somewhere to live. So the husband ends up he ends up marrying another woman. And then this woman she's going to her ex-husband, who she believes is her husband, and she's asking him, well, why did you do this? This wasn't part of the plan. And did you just do that to get between another woman's leg? You did all of this, you set all of this up just so you can get between another woman's leg and have sexual relations with another woman. And then he comes back at her and says, well, and believe me, this is big time in China. Well, when we were married, why didn't you tell me that you were not a virgin? You didn't tell me that. And he finds out after the fact. So he's holding a grudge against her, and then she's, you see, it's tit for tat. You see, it's going both ways. And so now this woman, she's very, very angry. She's angry, and she literally hates her ex-husband. And she runs to another man, and guess what she tells this man? Listen, because this man has always had an affinity for this woman and always, flirting with her, this, that, the other. He said, you know what? She went up to him, and she said this, listen, if you help me kill my ex-husband, however, you want to put it, I'll let you have me. And this man was like, wait a minute, baby. I love you and all that, but I'm not trying to kill nobody. This is how far this woman, this ex-wife or the wife had gotten with her husband or ex-husband. To the point to where she wanted to kill this man. Now, I want you to stay with me, because do you see, there's hatred here to the point to where she said with her lips, Miss Bahar, I want my ex-husband dead. You see, because marriage in China, they're kind of old school. Now, they're catching up now with the American way of, love them and leave them and marry for a day and divorce tomorrow. But you look at China as a whole, they still real traditional when it comes to marriage. They take that stuff very seriously. When you do those vows in China, that stuff is real. And it's not just mere words. Here in America, you married one day, the next day you can divorce. You don't believe me? Go to Las Vegas. Happens all the time. Any of you know what I'm talking about? So the mentality of the Eastern and Western mindset are totally different. They see marriage as sacred, honorable. You see? And Hakoin is right. In China, divorce can happen in one day. And that is very true. Can happen in one day. But you see, when you divorce in China, you're dealing with families. And you're dealing with legacies. And you're dealing with family's face. You see, you always want to save face with family. And you don't want to stomp on and disrespect the ancestors. Oh, they're big on that. So this woman had got to the point, and see, that's where she was. She was like militant Mary. If your name is Mary, no offense, but she's like, look, I want to kill this man. Literally. And she went out and sought somebody to take him out. And at the same time, every year she would petition to the law system there and say, listen, our marriage, our divorce was fraudulent. It wasn't based on any grounds. We were just trying to get a house. And the law, they kind of just blew this old lady away. And she wasn't really old, but they just kind of blew her away because she kept coming back year after year after year. For 10 years she did this. Now, what kind of does that not show her loyalty? That she was really loyal to this man. And she really thought that they wanted to get a place together. And so that's why she divorced him. Otherwise, she would have never consented to a divorce. Because do you know in China, to get a divorce, the two parties have to consent. One party just can't say, oh, well, I just want to go divorce this person. Bada boom, bada bing, it's divorce. No, both parties have to agree. So if one party doesn't agree, there's no divorce. At that time, that's what the law was. Because the laws do change. Just like here in America, laws change. So this woman for years had hatred towards this man. Years and years. And she fighting to get her man back. That's already done remarried. Supposedly, he's quote unquote happy. Well, at the end of the story, guess what happened? At the end of this whole movie, guess what happened? The ex-husband, because listen, the law courts finally caught up with it and said, okay, listen, we need to rectify this because this was totally wrong. The woman is showing through her deeds that she truly loves this man and that, maybe all this was fraudulent like she's saying. Otherwise, why would she keep coming back year after year, nagging all these officials, holding up signs, blocking traffic to make things happen and to make herself heard and get attention to herself. So this was finally going to be heard in courts. But guess what happened? The ex-husband or the husband, he dies. He ends up dying. Remember what I told you? The woman said, listen, I want this man dead. And guess what? Her ex-husband or her husband ends up dying. Ends up dying. He dies. So again, since he dies, then, when it comes to the state side and the state hearing the case, boom, all that's done. The law side is done because the man dies. So then the woman, what does she do? She decides, I'm going to commit suicide. So she's trying to find this place to commit suicide. So this is the humorous part of it. So she goes to this man's peach field. This man has peach trees, and she finds this nice, very nice, peach farm. And so she throws the rope and she's getting ready to commit suicide. She's getting ready to hang herself from a tree. Because she feels so terrible. Because guess what? She said out of her mouth, I want my husband dead. Now, the husband didn't die on the spot, but the husband died a couple of years later. But, the man's dead. He's pushing daisies. The man's dead. So imagine how this woman feels. She's trying to reconcile a marriage, and then, the husband dies because of what she said and because of the anger that she harbored against this man. And she wouldn't let it go. She was relentless. She was like a Rottweiler. When a Rottweiler bites down on something, listen, they don't let go till there's no signs of life. They put the jaws of life on you when a Rottweiler bites down on something. I don't know if you ever seen that in person, but I have. You literally have to kill that dog for it to release its bite, its grip. And so this woman is getting ready to, hang herself from a peach tree. And then the owner of the peach farm, he comes out and says, hey lady, what are you doing? And she goes in all in the spiel, listen, I want to kill myself. I don't have no reason for living. So the man said, listen, if you really want to kill yourself, he said, go across the street over there to my competitor's peach farm and do it over there. He said, listen, if you kill yourself here on my land and hang yourself here, there's nobody going to come pick my peach trees anymore. He said, now this a realistic man, right? He's all, he said, listen, you're going to destroy my business because it'll be known that a woman hung herself from my peach tree. So there'll be no more people trying to come over here and take my peach trees anymore. This place will be considered haunted. Nobody wants to come over here. Oh yeah, that's where they hang their woman. We can't go pitch no peach trees from that place. But he said, no, what you want to do? And he was serious too. And the woman actually started laughing. He said, look, if you really want to kill yourself, lady, go and do it in my competitor's peach farm over there across the street. That way, that'll put him out of business and all of his business will come over to my place. You see? And so the woman at this time, then I guess that little opportunity for a little jokey joke, a little laugh there, really made her reconsider her taking of her life. She really began to reconsider it. So, push the story forward. The woman she's in Beijing at this time. She was from some farm country land. She was a country gal. So she ends up staying in the city there in Beijing. She actually starts up a little business for herself. And she has to open up a little restaurant for herself, making her tofu. Many people come there and eat. And one of the persons that came there and eat and patronized her restaurant one day was actually one of the state members that, she was nagging for so many years. And he remembered her face. And, behind her nagging the state officials, a lot of state officials were fired because it was found that they were into corruption. Surprise, surprise. State officials into corruption and taking bribes and stuff like this. So he ended up losing his job behind this woman. Because, they would try to suppress this woman from even following up with the state system, the court system. And they would do it in some kind of unscrupulous type ways. And that was found out because they were trying to hush her up. They didn't want this to get up to the higher ups. So the man ended up losing his job just to start another profession for himself, something that he really liked to do. He said it wasn't making the same amount of money that he was making as a state official, but still he was successful because he loved doing what he liked to do. Success is relative. So anyway, he asked this woman, what ended up happening with your case? Did you and your husband reconcile? Did you what happened? And then she told him, well, my husband ended up dying. And then she begins to tell him the real reason why they faked the divorce. And my goodness, I tell you, it brought me to tears. Do you know why they faked the divorce? Not to get and she said, what you see in getting the apartment, that was just what we wanted the government to see. She said, but what we really wanted was we wanted to have a second child. Wow! Brought tears to my eyes, Ms. Bahar. She said we wanted to have a second child. And during this time in China, you couldn't have a second child. It was against the law to have more than one child. Hakoy to tell you they had a one-child policy. So if you would get impregnated after the one child, guess what? It was abortion time, baby. You run into the abortion clinic and you aborted the baby. Because it was high law that you could only have one child. If you were married. Right? So this is why they had to get a divorce. You see, they were skirting the system. This is why they really wanted to do it. But the man, unfortunately, he didn't own up to his side. When he got a divorce, he went and ran to another woman. Wow. I found that story quite instructional. As Kohen taught you about hate. I mean, let's face it. We're living in some of these nations where people literally, they hate. They hate you. And you may not have offended them in any kind of way. They just hate you for who you are and what you stand for. And how you wear your hair, what kind of clothes you wear. And the color of your skin and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. How much money you make and blah, blah, blah. Your career, blah, blah, blah. They just hate you. And so be it. You have to leave these people to it. You cannot, waste all your energies on retaliation and, well, you hate me, I'm going to hate you back, blah, blah, blah. That's just not conducive for you to have that kind of thought process and consider yourself a child of the living God. It just doesn't work that way. But do you see in this story, as that story began to unfold, I was like, wow. You see how hatred can take you to, say things that you really don't mean and you wish you can take back later. And things that you should have never said to begin with. Because, her husband ended up dead just like she wanted. Her desire, her dream came true. Interesting story, Mishpah. Very, very interesting story. So, just wanted to put that story out there on Front Street. Very interesting movie that had a lot of lessons in it. And just like you're learning from being at the feet of the Kohen, is that there's so much revelation. I know many of you may have read, I know this is one of the first verses that I came to when I came back to the facts, when I came back to the will of God, was Genesis 49. How many of you were Genesis 49 and still are Genesis 49 fans? I didn't say San Francisco 49ers, but I'm talking about Genesis, Bereshit, Genesis chapter 49. What is the title of the movie? I'm going to have to get back with you on that one, Rabbi Yosef Hilton. Kind of a freakish title. Real interesting movie on YouTube. I mean, not YouTube, but on Netflix. So when we began to look at Genesis 49, any of you Genesis 49 lovers? Because I am. Genesis 49, Genesis 48. This is our history. And in me going back to the will of God and understanding who I am in this whole, earth that's revolving around the sun, what is my purpose and who I am, the characteristics, came out crystal clear. The tribal affiliation. A lot of you still today trying to run down and trying to understand, your tribal affiliation and where you fit in the grand scheme of things. And that's okay. I do believe there's a time and place when all this stuff will be revealed to you in due time, and you'll really grab hold of the revelation. And revelation will become, maybe right now you have revelation maybe with the rabbit ears with aluminum foil on there as far as reception is concerned. But you'll get to a point where the revelation will come to you, and it may take some time, where revelation may come to you and it's an HD quality. Where you're getting, you see it crystal clear. And nobody can tell you that they cannot tell you that they cannot tell you that you are who you say you are, and you are who you think you are. Too many times we concern ourselves with the external factors. When only thing that should matter to you, you create your world internally. That's where your world needs to be created, and then it'll be manifested externally. Now, a lot of you have been using in ignorance, and you see a lot of the successful people as well, they have been using the law of assumption. They have been using it. They don't put a name on it, and they don't understand that they've been doing it. But they realize, oh, I do this and it works. I do this and it works. So they just keep rinsing and repeating it. The law of assumption, the law of attraction. I'm telling you, when you begin to operate in that law of assumption, I'm telling you, how many of you have seen this and have experienced this? Like when you start, claiming something. The Christians say claim it. Ooh, I claim that. I claim this. I claim that. When you begin to operate in the law of assumption, it's like the thing that you want. You may not know if it's the law of assumption, just like Kohen told you in his testimony. He didn't know it was the law of assumption. He didn't know he was operating in the law of attraction, but he was. See, now, remember we talked about rabbit ear antenna quality. Now, Rabbi Simon Altaf is getting this in HD quality 5D. Now, took many years later, but now that's where it's at. Does time matter for us? I submit to you not. Okay, Rabbi Benir. Rabbi Benir saying he has a testimony. So we'll give the mic over to Rabbi Benir before we really get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today with our abilities. Us having abilities. And for anyone else, if you have a testimony at this time, you can give it or you can text it in as well. And I'll be glad to read it, or I'll be glad to give up the mic before we get into my lecture here. Okay, so over to you, Rabbi Benir.
Shabbat Shalom, HaKohen, Chief Rabbi Kefa, Rabim, Morim, and Mishpahah. If I could get a one, if everybody can hear me okay. All right, great, wonderful. Well, praise Yahweh. I just wanted to share because it's always relevant what HaKohen and Chief Rabbi Kefa talk about. And it's as though, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but on the same frequency, the same wavelength, big time. So my testimony this week, I had a dream 3 weeks ago. And as everybody knows, I actually made a trip to Ethiopia back in March of 2018, earlier this year. And in my dream, it was about 2:30 in the morning, 3 weeks ago. I dreamt about my trip that I had there, and I was telling people about King Solomon, and his relationship with the Queen of Sheba. Now, this dream happened, like I said, at 2:30 in the morning. I have a friend of mine that I actually do business with, okay? As everybody knows, I'm in the gold business, okay? And that's another story in and of itself on how that actually happened. But what happened was I received a text from a colleague of mine who's actually in the gold business with me. He sent this text to me at about 12:30 that morning. Now, I had gone to sleep. I had already been asleep. So I had awakened from my dream, and like I said, at about 2:30, and I woke my wife up, and I told her exactly what happened in my dream, what I just shared with you. And usually when I wake up early in the morning like that, I look at my cell phone, We're talking about cell phones, how about that? I look at my cell phone because I get messages throughout the night. And so I looked at my cell phone, and he had actually texted me some information regarding a meeting that he wanted me to actually have with him and with a queen. This is a real queen, folks. She's known, and you can actually look her up on YouTube. Queen Sheba Ra III. And I said, my goodness, what is this all about, right? So this week, we actually had that meeting, that face-to-face meeting. Matter of fact, I'm actually here in Trinidad right now. And she was actually born in Trinidad, okay? She actually can trace her bloodline all the way back. I know this is going to seem incredible, right? She can trace her bloodline all the way back to Ham, okay? And you'll see that when you actually do the research on the internet. So when we actually had this face-to-face meeting, the purpose of the face-to-face meeting was that, and by the way, you'll see that she's actually the queen of many kingdoms. It goes back to Sudan. It goes back to the Cushite kingdoms. I mean, it goes way back, right? So as we met with her, and I was very impressed with her. She was a very humble woman, very open-minded. Her whole objective in this meeting was to find out about how they could actually introduce a cryptocurrency based on gold, right, amongst these kingdoms in Africa. So as I sat there and listened to her, asked her questions, I found that, she was about the people. She wanted to actually see some things happen for the people. And I wanted to share that because, of course, we were talking about the law of attraction, the things that we think about. And, I thought that was very, very relevant. So the bottom line is that, I'm actually working with, the company that I work with to help them with respect to, solving a lot of problems with respect to monetary policy and the like. So I give praise to Yahweh, I give praise to the Inhotma and how she in turn guides and leads. And as we sat down during that meeting also, I mentioned to her, it wasn't by happenstance that we were actually meeting, and she agrees. She concurred with that. It was all, part of the plan. So I don't know exactly where everything's going to lead. And HaKohen, I want to talk to you in greater depth about this, of course, as far as, what steps should be taken and what should be done. But, the bottom line is that, things happen. When we pray and we think about things and we take action and do things. And that was something that happened to me, my wife, and, of course, others that are actually involved with us in our business. So, Baruch Hashem Yahweh, thank Yahweh for his guiding and leading in Hokmah. And just thought that was very relevant to share that information.
Tada Rabah for that, Rabbi Benia. One quick thing to notice, as I will say this, and I'm pretty sure Rabbi Benia will agree with me, is that when you begin to, what do you think about most of the time what do you think about most of the time? Do you not? You see, this attraction thing is real. I mean, literally, when you operate in the law of assumption, and you're desiring some things to come about, like maybe let's just say it's a man, it's a woman, or maybe it's some kind of material thing that you desire, you want to have. Do you not notice that, like, as you dream about it at night, during the daytime, that particular thing is actually attracted to you? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Like, maybe before, consciously, you didn't see that thing. That thing is before your face all of the time during the day. How many of you know what I'm talking about? You'll be driving, it'll just be there. You'll see it, like, wow. And because you were dreaming about it last night. Now, when you're awake during the daytime, how many of you know what I'm talking about? And during the day, during your daily days, whatever you do, your activities, your daily activities during the day, this thing that is not haunting you, but is actually what is actually driving you, and what you think about most of the time is in your face during your daily activities. For example, let me just give you an example, because some of you may be thinking, well, Rabbi, I'm not getting this. I have the rabbit ears antennas on. I'm not getting this frequency. I'm not getting this vibration. I'm not seeing where you're going here. Okay. Say like you wanted a Lamborghini. Now, you may not have seen a Lamborghini in your city. All, in your lifetime, you may not have seen a Lamborghini in your city, in the major thoroughfares in your city. Now that you begin to desire and use the law of assumption, and begin that you already have that Lamborghini, and you thinking about that Lamborghini, and you smelling the leather interior of that Lamborghini, and you seeing the color of your Lamborghini when you go to bed at night, and you see that Lamborghini in your garage, and you see yourself washing that Lamborghini, or you taking it to the car wash. Now, when you wake up in the morning and you go about your day, all of a sudden, Lamborghinis are literally attracted to you, to where you're passing by the Walmart and there's a Lamborghini parked in the parking lot, or you going by the gas station to put some gas, and lo and behold, a Lamborghini drives right up next to you at the opposite pump and is pumping gas. How many of you know what I'm talking about? This is that attraction that's actually coming to you. Now, it could be a Lamborghini, it could be a man, it could be a woman, any of these things, because this is you must understand this, is that a lot of you don't have is because you don't think. It's because you think of nothing, then you have nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Because you dream of nothingness, then guess what you're going to have in your daily life? Nothingness going on. It's just going to be routine. It's going to be like you're just like a robot. Some of you are only thinking negativity. Well, guess what's going to happen to you and materialize out in your physical presentation? Negativity. I'm telling you, when we begin to use our brains to the capacity of how we're supposed to be using them, plug it into the proper sources that you've been being taught on here by the son of Aaron, my goodness, the world literally becomes your oyster. And if you heard in Rabbi Simon Altab's testimony that he was given today, little portions of it, about how the law of assumption has literally been working in his life years ago, and it is to this day even more so. It's just it's just, my goodness, it's just HD quality now. We're talking about HD quality. And it's going to get that way for all of you as well. Because all of you, just like he said, has the ability. You have the ability. You have the God-given ability within you. You have the abilities. You look at Genesis chapter 49. What is it talking about with the clans? When you boil it all down, it's talking about the family's ability. Think about it. It's talking about the family's ability. How each son has an ability. It's talking about, so the question I have for you today is, what's your ability? You're able to do it, but are you able to do it? You have the ability, but are you able? Rabbi Benir, he gave you a little formula there. That is, it may take some work. It may not happen tomorrow, but will you be able the next day and the next day? Will you still have that ability, that desire, that drive? I would encourage you to look at what really makes you happy and then go from there. Build your foundation on happiness and peace, and then you can build from there. Because whatever makes you happy, if whatever you're doing that makes you happy, use that. That's your fuel to rocket you to the universes. Sky is no limit for you. I'm your biggest cheerleader and always will be. Because I understand that this stuff is real. And my understanding as I continue to understand. Hakohi said something in his lecture that I think was so prevalent. You know, he was dealing with his friend Winston, I think his name is Winston, his friend Winston. He's dealing with his friend Winston. And what did Winston always keep saying? Oh, Winston always came back with something like, okay, the skepticism, right? But what did Hakohi tell him every single time? And everybody else around, even to his wife. He said what? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You see, we don't wish, we don't dream, we don't have desires because we're too busy worrying about it. Worry is kryptonite to you even having any kind of dreams, desires. Forget about a law of assumption. You have the law of worry, which is a law you shouldn't have. Don't worry about it. Many of you right now have worries. Don't worry about your worries. Think about you being out of your worry, because that puts you in a state of what? Happiness and peace. But when you worry, what state are you putting yourself in? A state of depression. And I tell you, a majority of the people here in North America, especially during this time, it's supposed to be a time of goodwill towards all men. But we don't have the goodwill, we have the worry. Oh, I'm worried about not getting that gift. Oh, I'm worried about, if I'm going to have enough money to be able to do this, that, the other, and the third, and to really, make my house look better than the Joneses and have all these lights and cameras and action and all this other stuff. You spend too much time worrying. When you have the ability, the innate ability built within you from your Creator to be able to do great, marvelous, wondrous things and to leave a legacy on this earth that is one of formidable appreciation. I appreciate and I give thanks that the God of Israel birthed Rabbi Simon Altam. I give thanks for that. And I give thanks that the God of Israel birthed each and every one of you and brought you into this life, brought you into this world. HaKohen questioned all of you. Brought you in this world to do what? What are you here to do? Why are you here? What are your abilities? We look at Joseph's life. Yes, Joseph dies in this Parsha. Yes, we're at the end. We're finishing up the book of Bereshit here. What's your takeaway from the book of Bereshit? As your revelation will change of the book of Bereshit, every time you read it, every time we open it up and re-examine it, because remember, sometimes you have the reception of the rabbit ears with the aluminum foil on it, and other times you have the HD quality reception with the 5G, not the 4G. You kicked it up to 5G. And Alexa don't need to tell you anything. It's because you're a thinker, man. You're a thinker and you're a reader. Andrew Carnegie's family is. They're thinkers and they're readers. That's what he said in his book, in his own words. I come from a family of thinkers and readers. You need to think. See, that'll help you decipher what you read. But some people just take readings as rote. Oh, yeah, because he said it, it must be true. Because he said it, I'm going to follow it. No, you need to think. You need to think. And then in your thinking, then you need to create for yourselves a better place. If you're depressed, create for yourself a better description. Even though the medical powers that be may say, oh, you're diagnosed with so-and-so. Just because they tell you that don't mean you have to create that for yourself. Just because your husband puts you down, that doesn't mean you have, and calls you all kind of names that are not uplifting. That don't mean you have to keep that and create that for yourself. Don't worry about it. You have the ability to do great things. Don't worry about it, Mishpachah. What is your ability? I just told you you have the ability to do great things. But it means nothing me just telling you that. What do you have to do? You have to internalize it and say, you know what? Rabbi Kefa, you're right. I do have the ability to do great things. And your great things may not be on the scale of my great things, but so be it. They're your great things. They're not my great things. I'm not trying to hijack your great things. But not for one iota do I want any of you to think you're just here by happenstance and you're just here, you're just a sperm count, because you're more than that. Your Creator can count the hairs on your head. You're more than just a sperm count. You serve a great purpose. You have a great role to play. I don't care what your age is. Get off of that. Get off of that bandwagon. Oh, well, I'm this age, Rabbi. You better stop all. You get off of that. You see, you putting yourself in the worry category. What does age have to do with anything? The world set it up to have something to do with anything, but it doesn't have anything to do with age. Doesn't mean a hill of beans. But they want to tell you that's what it means. See, now, if you want to think that, then guess what's going to happen, and that's what your life is going to be about. Oh, it's because of my age. Because of my age. Quit worrying about your age. What do you wish? Don't worry. What are your wishes? What are your desires? Do you desire to have the abilities of the 12 tribes? Do you desire to have these abilities that are in Genesis chapter 49? Do you desire that for yourself? You must ask yourself this day. What do you desire? Oh, yeah, Rabbi, these are some great stories and great history of our people. Well, you're writing your history today. What will history say of you? The legacy that you leave behind. What will they say of you? What will you be remembered for? You serve the same God as our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That God is the God we serve. The living God. There's a bigger purpose and bigger plan that you may never understand, but you can continue to try to understand it. You see, the creator of the heavens and the universes, he's only going to meet you at your ability. What are you able to do? That's what God's able to do for you. What are you able to do? What are you willing to do? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to be able to accept change? President Obama talked about change. But more importantly for you, you have to be willing to accept change. And that's what most people can't do. You see, because they like playing the same old record. They don't like change. Don't change it up. They get uncomfortable. That's where the world begins, when you get outside of the circle. The influence is outside of the circle. That's why all the great things can happen in your life, when you think outside of the box. When you begin to think, well, my grandpa told me I can't do this. My mama said well, then guess what? Are you going to think that? You're going to believe that? You're going to receive what they're saying? Or are you going to use your transmitter and receiver, that brain of yours, to do great and create great and wonderful things for yourself? We talk about the greatness of our forefathers, our patriarchs. These mighty men that serve the same God of Abraham, Isaac, and their father Jacob. Their abilities. Noting that within their abilities, what? Mistakes were made. You make mistakes. But that's only an opportunity for you to do greater things. The mistake is in the miracle, right? The mistake is the miracle. If you're supposed to be a light, I guess we can say you're supposed to be a leader. Because last time I checked, light leads the way. Light is the leader. You can take light into any darkness, and guess what? Light will lead. Light will guide you, right? It leads you, right? You don't believe me? Turn off all the lights in your house at night, and then try to get around and navigate around the furniture in your home. See what happens without a flashlight or a candle. See how much in the lead you are as a leader. You're a leader at some capacity. You may not be the head of state. You may not be a prime minister. You may not be the president of the United States of America, but you are definitely a leader. Well, I didn't know that, Rabbi. I have the ability to lead. Yes, you do have the ability to lead. At what capacity? Well, to me, I believe that's firmly on you. At what capacity do you want to lead? What ability? Joseph showed us his ability as we look at his life. He left us a legacy. Yes, Joseph made mistakes. Like we all will, and we all do. But Joseph did not sit there worrying and playing pity pat. Oh, woe is me. Oh, I'm so worried about. Don't worry about it. What is that it? That it is whatever is that it in that you worry about. That it. The it factor. Oh, don't worry about it. What have you created these 6 days of labor? What are you creating today for yourself? What do you mean by what I create, Rabbi? What do you think about? What are you doing? What is your thought process? What are your desires? Do you really want to serve the living God? The God of Abraham? The God of Isaac? The God of Jacob? Do you really want to do that? Well, it's going to require you putting in some kind of work. That's called ability. What's your ability? Are you able to dream? Are you able to have desires? Well, I've been told that I'll never be nothing. Well, guess what? That's what you've been told, but do you believe it? See, it's unfortunate that a lot of us are dictated by external influences, by things that are outside of ourselves. So, on the inside of ourselves is a shell of ourselves because we don't have anything in there. We haven't built up anything. It's because we've been fed so much information from the outside. What do you tell yourself in the morning? What do you tell yourself throughout the day? How do you see yourself? These things you need to look at as important and relevant. Not so much concern yourself about what others think about you. Because how many of you probably know a lot of people have some bad thoughts about you. And some folks maybe think about cow manure is even more valuable than yourself. So you can't concern yourself with how other people see you. How do you see yourself this day? As a leader? As a light to the nations? as a child and daughter of the living God, son of the living God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, as Israel. These are the kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves. These are the kind of things that we need to deal with within our own selves. What are your abilities? Genesis 49 talks all about the family abilities. You'll be able to do this. But the question is, will you do it? Let me tell you this joke. Listen to this joke. My grandfather avoided the Holocaust with his ability to hide. Now this is heavy. This is deep. If you can get it. My grandfather avoided the Holocaust with his ability to hide. And by not being Jewish. By living in Canada his entire life. All about strategy. Do you get it? My grandfather avoided the Holocaust. Now, his grandfather followed the same pattern that our forefathers followed as well. In the exile. And being taken by nation after nation. My grandfather avoided the Holocaust with his ability to hide. There's revelation in that. And by not, what does that mean? Probably converted into something else. Whatever. To save his life. That's how you're going to survive. You want to be a survivor, right? I know all of you in this room, you want to avoid a Holocaust in whatever kind of form it comes in. Listen to this. I found this. I was like, wow, this is quite interesting. My grandfather avoided the Holocaust with his ability to hide, and by not being Jewish, and by living in Canada his entire life. All about what? Strategy. All about strategy. All about strategy. Being able. Ability to hide. That's heavy. That's deep. How are you going to survive your Holocaust? Some of you think you're either in Holocaust or you're just you're in hell. It's just all hell is breaking loose for you. Nothing seems to go right. How are you going to survive that? By your ability to do what? Ability to hide. Ability to move away from that. His grandfather was the grandfather in this story right here. What did he do? He packed up and moved to Beverly. He had to hide. By not being Jewish. By moving to Canada, living in Canada his entire life. It's all about strategy. How many of you this day have strategy? You have a strategy. Well, Rabbi, I never thought about a strategy. I'm too busy trying to live in the spirit. No, you need to develop a strategy. You living in the now, in reality. The spiritual side will come much later. Don't harbor hate. Love your neighbor as yourself. This will help you develop the spirit, man, by living in this fleshly, earthly reality world. You must do that. It's all about the strategy. What kind of strategies do you have to survive? Holocaust took out a lot of Jews. Okay, Rabbi Joseph Hilton, post your testimony. We'll be glad to read it. Holocaust took out a lot of Jews. A lot of them died. How about the ones that survived? What did they do? I'm pretty sure they had a plan. They had a strategy. They had a desire and a will to want to live by any means necessary. Learn from that. Rabbi Yosef Hilton says, I give thanks and praise to Abba Yahweh and Master Yeshua for fire protection contract that I should have serviced in May 2018 was postponed when I missed the appointment. So I did not pursue it, thinking it was given thinking it was given to another company when the agent didn't call to rebook. On Thursday, their accountant called me. She was going through 2017 invoices and noticed that the service was not done and asked me how often it should be done. I assured her annually. And Imhokma encouraged me to tell her to call the agent and ask them to call me to do the service. So she called the agent's office, and within an hour the agent called me to continue the service. Not only was the contract reissued to me, but they gave me another site and extra business from both. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem indeed. To the Master Yahweh, to the Master Yeshua, for your testimony there, Rabbi Yosef Hilton. Ability. Rabbi Yosef Hilton gives you a great example of his ability. His ability to follow through. His ability to ask the questions. See, a lot of you, I'm too shy, Rabbi, to ask a question. Yet you run around here calling yourself a family. Are you shy to talk to your family? I'm too shy. I think my question may not be that important. It's not relevant. I don't want to be shamed. You're not going to be shamed here. If it's important to you, then it's important. Who cares what everybody else thinks? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Why do we worry? You worry yourselves to death. Why? It's because you don't deal with the worry. You don't create for yourself a way out. Yeah, you only consider the worry. And you don't start thinking about peace, harmony, happiness. Those things are far from you. Howbeit, because you're too busy worrying. Oh, I'm worried about this. You're worried about that. Worried about this. Blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. You can't get on. We should not worry, Mishpachah. Don't worry about it. Most of your focus, if not all of your focus, needs to be on the other side of the street, where you continue to desire, you can continue to dream, you continue to have thoughts, you continue to think, but you continue to think about, those things that you desire, and you continue to do that. And well, Rabbi, when do I stop doing that? You continue to do it, to where it becomes what? It becomes second nature, and you just do it. You see, you must condition yourselves to learn about yourselves, to put your mind in always a state of positivity, as everything around you, all hell may be breaking loose. But you must always think about being positive. A positive state. That feel good we talked about. That feel good time, you see. To where you stay in a state of feel good. Well, how you doing? I feel good. Well, how you feel? I feel good. What are you doing today? I feel good. It should get to a point to where your middle name becomes Feel Good. Oh, here comes Dr. Feel Good, because he's always feeling good. They may not say it like this, but they'll definitely say it like this. Why are you always happy? Has anybody ever come to you and confronted you like that? And they ask you this question. Why are you always happy? You always just so happy. That's when you know you're on the right track. When other people see it. Why are you always so happy? Because you're Dr. Feel Good. What's your prescription that you write? Feel good. Well, I have cancer, Rabbi. Feel good. Well, Rabbi, they're getting ready to take my house. Feel good. I'm going to write you a prescription of feel good. Oh, Rabbi, there's riots going on. Oliver, feel good. Oliver's right up in the mix over there in France. My goodness. Paris. Woo-wee. Feel good. Well, Rabbi, there's no food on the table. Feel good. Feel good. Give thanks. Be grateful that you have a table. You see? We need to recondition our minds, because too many times we're focused on the negative. Israel, Jacob, is getting ready to die. Right? And what does he do? Does he sit there and run his sons under the bus? No. He makes his sons what? Feel good. Jacob, Israel became Dr. Feel Good. Sometimes he was just Jacob. He was Jacob when he was worried, right? But when he became Dr. Feel Good, he became Israel. Torah will tell you that. You see it time and time again. Sometimes Jacob is Jacob, and sometimes Jacob is Israel. You see, because when Jacob became Dr. Feel Good, he became Israel. But when Jacob worried, oh man, I'm worried. I lost one son. I'm so worried. I'm so worried. What happened to my son? He died. Oh, I love that son. Worry. Don't worry about it. Well, Rabbi, that's easier said than done. That's why you need to elevate yourself to the feel good mentality. Get on the other side of the street of feel good. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to wake up this morning and I'm going to feel good. Even though you may wake up in the morning and your back hurt, I'm going to feel good. You understand where we're going here? Jacob left his sons with great blessings on all of his sons. He blessed them with abilities. He told them about their sin. I'm telling you, it does work, Yael, woman of the 10. But it requires you having the ability to be able to do these things, to take the necessary steps. It may not happen overnight, but you can become Dr. Feel Good instantly. Just tell yourself you feel good. Think about feeling good. Does it pay to think about feeling good? How much does it cost you to think about feeling good? Can anybody tell me? We put emphasis too many times on the wrong things. Why? It's because we've been fed a lot of wrong information. You see? You just become Dr. Feel Good, not Dr. Feel. Dr. Feel Good. You're Dr. Feel Good. You put a smile on everybody's face. I'm telling you, you go this week, you use that. You walk around, hey, how are you? I'm Dr. Feel Good. And you're like, whoa, what's this? just look at you like you're kind of alien. Where you come from? What planet are you from? Because you Dr. Feel Good. You don't sit here. You see, we put ourselves in these categories. You just be Dr. Feel Good all the time. Feel good. Even though you may have, blown up some accounts on Forex. Feel good. I do. I feel good because I know there's opportunity and I'm experiencing, I'm learning things. I'm definitely growing. I'm going to feel good no matter what. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to get better. I'm going to do better, and I am better. I'm going to be better. And I'm going to even get better today than I was yesterday. And tomorrow I'm going to be even better. That's how you need to approach and tackle anything in your life that seems to be standing in your way. Just feel good. Peace on earth and goodwill towards all men. This is the season that we're in right now here in North America. Truly, all of you are magnets. All of you are magnets. And people are drawn to you just because of what you stand for. And just because of the God that you serve. I'm telling you, believe it or not, people are attracted to you. Some attracted to you for positivity, while others are attracted to you because they just totally hate what you stand for. Totally hate what you represent. So what? Feel good. And people will come to you seeking advice. Coming to you with their problems. They literally will. I'm telling you, they will. Because there's a peace about you. And you're always happy. You see, to their cloud, you bring the sun. To their rain, right, you bring shade and protection. You bring a tree. You protect them. And they're going to come to you. And I know they've been, these past 6 days of labor, I know they've been coming to you. and they seek your advice. They seek your instruction, and that's a beautiful thing. And we're able to create and help them create their own worlds for them, because some people just don't know how to create. They don't know how to be positive. They don't know nothing about. They can tell you about Dr. Phil, but they don't know nothing about Dr. Phil Good. And I noticed this during this time of peace on earth and goodwill towards all men, this time of Christmas and being merry, is that a lot of folks are just depressed. And a lot of them are just, they have built up anxiety. Well, this one lady, I was talking with, she came to me this week. She's like, hey, somebody's doing something great for my son that has special needs. I mean, they're doing a great thing. And, this lady, she's poor on the financial side. And she was like, oh, yeah, they're doing this for free for me. And they want to give this and do this for my son for free. I want to give them something. I want to do something back for them, for them doing it. I say, hold up, pump the brakes. No. See, now you're messing with these people blessing. These people want to bless you by doing this for your son. Don't mess up their blessing. Don't feel like every person that gives you something, you have to give them something back. How many of you know what I'm talking about? This is one of these high pressure seasons for people. They feel like, oh, you just heard from a friend. Yeah, I got this gift for you. When you gonna come by and get it? All of a sudden, the first thing in your mind, I didn't get them any gift. I better run to the store and get them a gift. Who's to say? Where's it written that you have to give somebody something because they gave you something? Think about this. But that's how we've been taught. We've been wired this way. How come you cannot let that person just be a blessing to you and just give you something? And just off the cuff, he give you something and you go your way. You thank him and you're so grateful for it, and then you move on. Why do people have to think it has to be tit for tat? Oh, because you do this for me, then I'm going to do this for you, so I can repay you. When you know good and well you don't have the means, you definitely don't have the money, and maybe you don't have the time or the ability to be able to pay them back to show their gratitude towards you. I'll never be able to pay the son of Aaron back for what he's done for my life. You can't put that in monetary figures, man. How many of you ever heard people say, well, I'm indebted to you? I'm indebted to you. You can never pay somebody back for, especially something on that level. I mean, he totally changed I can never repay HaKohen back. I can never do that. What he's done for my life. But you know what? HaKohen's only doing what he's supposed to do. He's a Kohen. And last time I checked, go look at the abilities of the Levites that was in Genesis chapter 49 that you all read. That's his job. He's to teach Israel. But here's the bigger thing. Wherein does it say I have to repay him back for doing his job? He's just doing his job. I get that a lot in the service field. Maybe some of you as well. Oh, I can't thank you enough for helping, care for and heal and mend my child. I can never repay you. I don't want you to repay me. All I want you to do is pay it forward. Help somebody else out. You could never pay the Kohen back, the son of Aaron back, but you know what you can do? You can take his lessons and pay it forward. Begin to apply them. Begin to execute them in your life. That's going to make you a better person, thus making this world a better place. That's how you do it. How are you going to sit here and repay the Kohen back for what he's done to your life when he's given you life? I've had that said to me before. Oh, I thank you for saving my baby's life. That's my job. I was trained to do this. That's my ability. I thank God and give thanks that I was able to do it. You see? You see where we're going with this? What are your abilities this day? some of you are so trying to really understand the Kohen, and really try to get to his level. Don't worry about it. You never will. That's not your ability. You're not a Levite. Don't worry about it. Well, how does he get this? How did he take that verse and break it down? Don't worry about it. Just be grateful and thankful that he did, and that he gave you these great revelations that he has and will give you in the future. Be grateful and thankful for that fact. You know, in my affirmations, my Kohen has really taught me, you know, how it's all how you say things. And you need to start your day by saying it this way. And I learned this. I give some credit to Napoleon Hill. But I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am ... Whatever that ... may be. I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am ... The fact is, I'll never be able to repay the Kohen for what he's done. But what I can do is to be there to help him in any kind of way that I can. Way, shape, form, or fashion. It's within my facilities. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay it forward. Take his lessons and apply them. All of us as students of the son of Aaron need to do the same. To where one day the student will become the teacher, but always remain the student. Wow. Think about that going forward. And that's what we need to do, Mishpahah. This is how you repay the son of Aaron. Follow the teacher's instruction. Follow the teacher's instruction. Live your lives. Be fruitful. Multiply the earth. Truly take dominion over this earth that's been given to you. The reins of this earth revolving around the sun has been given to you and I. What are we doing with it? Well, I'm not able, my abilities. You see, because you're too worried about what you cannot do, what you do not have, opposed to what you're able to do, what's built in you to do, what's in your, beyond your DNA. This beyond DNA stuff here. But you're so busy running after the spiritual in this physical world that you neglect the physical. You neglect and you reject reality that's staring you in the face. And the reality that you create for yourself. Because you're just here going through the motions. You've been given this great gift of life by the creator of the heavens and the universes. And what are you doing with it? Worry? Don't worry about it. Depression? Forget about it. Don't have time for it because I'm what? I'm Dr. Feel Good. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to stay humble. I'm going to love my neighbor. Even though my neighbor don't believe the way I believe. Even though my neighbor may have a totally different lifestyle to me. Still a human being at the end of the day. At the end of the day, still a human being. He puts on his underoos just like I do. So you need to have a high respect for the creators of the heavens and the universes. And his creation as well. See, we're too busy worried about the spiritual that we neglect life on this earth to a full abundance. We neglect it. And it's all about warfare, clash warfare. I got to clash with this person. I have to disagree with this person, that person, the other person. My goodness. Don't worry about it. What are your wishes? What are your desires? Do you see yourself pleasing God? Or you just say it? Oh, I want to please God. But do you see yourself pleasing God? Do you see yourself doing it? These are things that we have to ask ourselves. Now, I'm going to get ready to wrap it up here in a minute, but Rabbi Simon Altaf, he talked about in his lecture, the Kohen, son of Aaron, Baruch Hashem, Master Jesus of Nazareth for that. He gave you end-time revelation right here from Genesis chapter 50. And believe me, it is there. Remember, we're closing up the book of Bereshit. But you can see from the book of Bereshit, the beginning to the end. Right there. You don't need to run to Revelation. It's right here in Bereshit, in the book of Genesis. It's there. Crystal clear. Now, let's talk about the scenario there. Let's go on and do some reading here about our forefathers and how their reaction. Action and reaction. Genesis chapter 50, let's start at verse 14. And again, I read from the Hidden Truth We Break scrolls. If you don't have these scrolls, I'd encourage you to get them for your studies. They'll really help you. I don't care what your religion may be, your affiliation, or whatever. If you just want to know and have an understanding about the facts on the ground, get these Hidden Truth We Break scrolls. You can purchase them on Amazon.com. They'll really help you. It's called the Hidden Truth We Break scrolls. Add them to your library. Truly will help you. Genesis chapter 50, starting at verse 14. And after he had buried his father meaning Israel, meaning Jacob, was just buried, Joseph returned to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, he and his brothers, and all who went up with him to bury his father. Look at verse 15. Then Joseph's brothers saw that their father, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, perhaps Joseph will hate us. Here we go. What are his brothers thinking? Joseph gonna hate us now. It's revenge of the Titans now. Because, father's dead, and we done some bad things to Joseph. Joseph's gonna hate us now. You see, what are they thinking? Perhaps Joseph will hate us, and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him. Now, remember we talked about the revelation that you got earlier from Rabbi Simon Altaf? Here it goes. End times. Change Joseph there, right? Put yourselves there as Joseph's brothers, as Israel. So, and then put Jesus there where Joseph is. Perhaps Jesus will hate us. This is the way Israel is thinking. Because of all of the evil that we did. Because we didn't obey. We didn't listen. We didn't believe. Here you go. This is juicy. Look at verse 16. So they sent messengers to Joseph, saying, before our father died, he commanded, saying, verse 17, thus shall you say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespasses of your brothers. Wow, that's heavy stuff. I went with the son of Aaron to Israel, and the son of Aaron did this petition to the real Israel, the real Jerusalem, at the temple site. Please forgive the trespasses of Israel. He said it. I'm paraphrasing it, but he said it this way. I remember I was too busy in between crying because I was just in such shock and awe at where I was at and what was truly going on here at the time. My goodness, I'll never forget that time as long as I live and even into the next life. That opportunity that I had with you there at the temple site in the real Jerusalem. And not the phony baloney, made up, make commercialism, all that Jerusalem. I'm talking about the real Jerusalem. I'll never forget that. And the petition that the Kohen gave there. So here it goes. So this is Israel speaking. Please forgive us the trespasses of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now please forgive the trespasses of the servants of the Elohim of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. My goodness. I see this as clear as day. And believe you me, as Israel, I was definitely weeping while the son of Aaron was given the petition there at the temple site. I was boo-hooing on the ground, in the dirt there. And it was just a moment where you realize that the temple is in ruins, just like we're told in our books. So I don't, peaceful and quiet as can be, nice breeze blowing, Beautiful day. And this petition is going out from a son of Aaron for all of Israel. I know a lot of you weren't there. Majority of you weren't there. But that's no worries. Don't worry about that. The petition was done. Please forgive the trespasses of the servants of the Elohim of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Look at verse 18. Then the brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, Behold, we are your servants. Do you not see? I'm telling you, I see it, HaKohim. I see it in HD quality here. I see it. I see it. The return. When he returns for his people, a lot of people, they're going to wake up and they're going to understand. Israel will wake up and, oh my goodness, we had it all wrong. We've been sinning. We did evil in your sight. We didn't treat you right. We definitely didn't live the life. My goodness. Again, Genesis 50 verse 18. Then his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, Behold, we are your servants. Look at verse 19. And Joseph said to them, do not, listen to this, put Yeshua, the Master Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah, put him there. And he said, and Messiah said to them, and Jesus said to them, do not be afraid, for I am, look, there it goes, I go in, For am I in the place of Elohim, which he is, Baruch Hashem. Look at verse 20. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but Elohim meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to rescue many people alive. Wow! Heavy stuff, isn't it? This is Revelation. Coming at you, not from the book of Revelation, coming at you from the book of Bereshit. From the beginning. You begin to see the end, right? Do you not see that? Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing for uncovering that. To rescue many of people alive. Jesus is life to many, especially during this time. Jesus is the reason for their season, especially during this time. They look at peace on earth and goodwill towards all men. All because of what Jesus done and what they understand Jesus done. Maybe they don't have the HD quality 3D, 4G, 5G. Maybe they only 2G. Doesn't matter. Maybe they only have the rabbit ear antenna when it comes to Revelation. Doesn't matter. Now, let's look at verse 21 of Genesis chapter 50. Now, therefore, do not be afraid. Why does it keep saying that? Now, therefore, do not be afraid. Said it again in verse 19. Do not be afraid. HaKohim talked about fear. Where does fear get you? Do not be afraid. Do not worry. You see, worry puts you in fear. Fear puts you in depression. Depression puts you in a state of death because you're dying. You're like a withering plant. You're not getting water. Now, therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So, here, the brothers started out thinking, oh man, Joseph, he's going to hate us. He truly hates us. He truly hates us. And some folks, even today, thinks God hates them. Oh, I'm just a sinner. I'm going to hell. I'm a sinner. God hates me. Jesus don't like me. Where does it say that? When we see, he said, I will provide for you and your little ones. My goodness, what a great shepherd for his sheep. And he comforted them. Well, who comforted me? It was none other than Mother Wisdom herself gave me comfort. The Im Chokmah comforted me. The comforter. Wow. She told me, my will is my word. I'll never forget that, Mishpah. I will never forget that in my bathroom closet. I'll never forget that. I was a Christian. Shabba doing in the closet. Just like Rabbi Simon Altaf. He was a Muslim. And I'm telling you, the laws of assumption working in his life. These universal laws from the universes. From our books. But you know what I see God sees in us? Our ability. Our ability. He looks at our ability. Your ability meter. Assess it. Increase it. Are you able? You need to be telling yourself, yes, I am. And I'm not talking about Cain and Abel. But are you able? You need to be telling yourself, yes, I am able. I am able. Ability meter. Don't be afraid. To this day, most folks run around in fear. And most folks, they begin to do what? They begin to reason within themselves. And just like the brothers, they begin to say, perhaps Joseph will hate us. And they see the God, the creator of the heavens and the universes, as this, just this, this person just wants to see them in a bad place, put them in a bad place, because you don't listen, and all this, and God is just totally opposite of that. The creator of heaven, he's totally opposite of that. He's a God of peace, a God of love, a God of kindness, yet at the same time a God of strength. But he's not a God of hatred. And he's not a God of fear. Don't be afraid. You see, most of the time we think everything that's meant for us evil. We think, oh, because, I know you're going to do evil against me because I've done evil to you. You see, there it goes, tit for tat. Just like I told that woman, just because somebody does good to you doesn't mean that you have to repay them. Be grateful and thankful and keep it moving by doing good for somebody else in your capacity. See, but too many times we try to equate goodness. Oh, you did this measure of good for me, then I'm going to do this measure of good. How about we just do good just like Santa Claus said, let's just do good for goodness sake. How about we just be good for goodness sake? Santa Claus? Santa says that, right? Oh, you better not pout, you better not cry, whatever that song. Do good for goodness sake. Just do good because of goodness. You see? How about that? Oh, Rabbi, you talk about that satanic. Santa means Satan. You see? There you go. You're worried about stuff that have no relevance. How about just be good for goodness sake? Too many times we try to find the evil, and yet we don't look towards the good. When the God of Israel, when the Master Yeshua was trying to teach us, it's the opposite. You try to look for the goodwill in all men. And women, for that matter. Don't want to leave you out. Look for the good in them. Too quickly, we want to run to the bad in them. Oh, I see all those bad traits in you. You're just terrible. Well, how are you going to raise their ability meter by doing that? Are you able? Your ability. Are you able? And I say to all of you and submit to all of you on YouTube, yes, you are. You are able. You are able. Well, Rabbi, but, no, I don't want to look at your butt. I don't want to examine your butt. We're not going to sit there. Well, but, yeah, but Rabbi, but. No, there are no buts. You are able. Be the I am like the I am. He says I am. He don't say I ain't or I am not. I am. That's your father. I am is your father. So what should you be saying? I am able. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong. But the fruit shouldn't fall too far from the tree. I am able. I am successful. I am happy. They could be coming and repo your car. I am happy. Because that means that it's making room for that new car that I always wanted. You know, I've been practicing I've been practicing that law of assumption that Rabbi Simon Altab, the Kohen, was talking about. So yeah, they have to repo this old bumper over here, this old clunker. Oh, I'm so happy and grateful they're doing it for me. Just moving it out of the way to make room. You see, you have to look for the goodness in everything, for goodness sake. People want to do good to you, you allow them to do good to you, for goodness sake. There's some good people in this world. There's some really good people in this world. And all of you in this world, in this room, should definitely be in that category. You're good people. So you wanna do good. You wanna be good, for goodness sake, as they say in these nations. So the brothers had their Joseph out to, for straight evil. That his brothers, that Joseph was going to hate him. Well, perhaps he's going to hate us now. He's drinking the haterade. And what are we told in Genesis chapter 50 and 21? My goodness. He spoke kindly to him and he comforted them. What a great lesson for us to learn going forward this day. Speak kindly. Yeah, Rabbi, sometimes that's hard for me to do. I can't speak kindly because so-and-so, they push my festivity meter. Instead of pushing my meter, for my ability meter, my festivity meter is being pushed. And so I don't speak too kindly. It does happen. Not to say that you're not going to make mistakes. You see? Not to say you're not going to make mistakes. But you need to be developing that, that kindness meter. Be kind and to comfort. Because, that's the epitome of the God that we serve. That's the epitome of the Messiah. Awesome stuff. Let me read these messages in closing. Let's read these messages. Daniel, a.k.a. Torah Walker, says, I know that I'm a product of that petition that HaKohen made because the date of the video I watched years ago and what I started to go through in my life after the petition was made by the hand of Aaron. So Todah Rabbah HaKohen for the great petition that you made for Israel. Oh, it was a great petition. It was that was a time in history where history was literally made. Just like history is made every day, but this was very important history. Very, very important history that will never come about again. Not that way. Maybe in yet future there'll be other trips there, but it'll never be replicated that same way for the first time. That was, and I'm so happy and humbled to be a part of that experience as a witness and as testimony to the very true living God that we serve, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that I uphold, that I uplift, and that I give esteem to, and that I give gratitude to in my daily life and how I live my life, and how I continue to live my life, how I raise my children, and that's what's real. That is just what's real. That's reality staring you in the face. So learn these lessons, Mishpachah. We're going to close it up here. Learn these lessons, Mishpachah. Take them and apply them. Use them. Now all of you beginning to understand. You can see Torah. Torah has many faces to it, right? I call it layers. Torah has many layers to it. And you see how you can read verses and things can be pulled out in due time. And you will see Torah in a different light. Torah would literally become even more real to you. You thought Torah was real to you, then Torah even becomes more real. That's the beauty in it all. Is that, and guess what, Mishpachah? It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Just like Winston, Hakohim's friend. You know, he thought, okay, yeah, you reached this milestone. Okay, then now you're finished. No, it doesn't stop. Don't worry about it, Mishpachah. It doesn't stop. It keeps getting better. Torah, you thought Torah was sweet? Well, guess what? It gets sweeter. You thought you thought you have arrived? No, you're just beginning. Baruch Hashem. You thought you have arrived when you found the Torah? No, you're just beginning. You're just a little one, as described here in the Torah. The Master Yeshua, he sees us just as little ones. And he's going to take care of us. He's going to protect us and he's going to comfort us. He'll take care of us. Don't worry. It's going to happen that way. It's written in stone. He's going to rescue many people alive. Baruch Hashem. That's going to happen. Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. It's going to happen. Regardless if everybody makes themselves their own God and has their God-in-a-box theology, that stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day. You can't run Israel away. Israel is here to stay. Israel's not going anywhere. The children of Israel are not going anywhere. May be dispersed and scattered, but you can't erase us from history. Can't do it. We may have been forgotten about for a while, but that's about it. You can't do it. You can't erase us off the planet. Just like you can't get rid of the priesthood. You can't do it. You can't erase them. You can't assume that they all live in Haiti, because that's definitely not true. Just as true as these two shepherd nations are where the sons of Joseph are. Ephraim and Manasseh. This is not true. The Ephraim that I know, he's in the east, the one that I met personally, and gave me the jawbone of an ass as a gift. Ephraim, Rabbi, what's his name? Rabbi Yehoshua, and he's in Israel. He's in Israel. So is Ephraim in the east? He says he's Ephraim, and guess what? Guess where he's at? He's in the east. He is in Israel. So that's a witness and testimony that I know personally. And he is in the east, by the way. So take that to the bank. So you look at these abilities, Genesis 49, study them, see what fits for you. But more importantly, all the abilities of this family, you're learning the ground roots of our abilities. And that's to, have compassion, love, for all humanity, do good for goodness sake. We do good because that's part of our nature. That's who we are. We're just good people. We're happy people, and we're people of peace. We're not people of war. So stop all this nonsense, YouTube. If you're running with these different groups that are telling you this, that, the other, and if you drink it from many different waters, it's only going to confuse you. Stay put, and stay settled down with the sons of Aaron. You'll do yourself a great service. Learn from Rabbi Simon Altab, one of the only two Levites that I know personally. And you'll do yourself a great service, Mishpachah. And repay him by putting in your service and paying it forward. Do what you're supposed to do. Do what you're supposed to do. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Well, if you're at the foot of the son of Aaron, you know what you're supposed to do. You just got to go out and do it because he's teaching you what you're supposed to do. The practicalities and where Torah is real. That spiritual stuff spirituality will take care of itself. You need to learn how to get on with Billy, Sam, Joe Bob, LaQuisha, LaShawn, Mary, Sue, Tom, Bill. You need to learn how to get on with these people. Hong Fao, Tim Lee, all these people. Mohammed, all these people. This is what you need to learn to do. That's important. This will boost your spirituality. What you do with your neighbor will decrease or increase your spiritual meter, hands down. Why are you worried about this vertical spiritual relationship when you have nothing going on vertically? Well, parallel. You have nothing going on. Thus, nothing going on vertically. Because heavens is like, wait a minute. How are you treating your neighbor? Oh, you don't treat your neighbor well. Oh, you don't even have any neighbors. Mr. Rogers is not even your neighbor. So, I mean, what does that mean for you vertically? Nothing. You see, nothing from nothing will leave you with what? Nothing. I never heard of nothing from nothing getting you something. That just doesn't work that way. And Hakohen gave you a very important principle that you need to understand. I'm going to repeat it in closing. Is this one. Is that the amount that you give out is the amount that's going to come back to you. That is real. The amount that you give out is the amount that's going to come back to you. Remember that going forward. Now that could be an amount of anything. The amount of love, the amount of kindness, the amount of anything. Take that to the bank. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up over here. I want you to enjoy your time with your families. I know Hakohen had asked this. He had asked this earlier, and I'll ask it again. Is there anyone that you have a problem with the new time that we do have? You know, we started at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time here in America. Is anybody have a problem with that? If you do have a problem, put up a P. But I think for the most part, the early bird said that they had no issue with it. But if this new time change and when we start time, if that seems to be a problem for you, just put up a P for yourselves, and we'll take a census on that. But for me personally, I have no problem with this time because it is a Shabbat. I know maybe some of you do have to work for other factors, but my ability to get up on the Shabbat, believe me, that won't have to come into question. You know what I mean? We talk about abilities here, you see. And you also have to look at the fact that, if you've got the ability during these 6 days of labor to get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to work, you got to look at that, where your loyalties truly lie, your ability meter. It's, again, just take all this in consideration. But when it comes to the Shabbat, I don't care what time it is. I mean, it's the Shabbat. I know a lot of you don't have it off. Maybe you can't have every Shabbat off, and maybe you do have to work. That's why we record the lectures to help out with that part. And if some of you just can't get up that morning for whatever rhyme or reason, always know that the messages are recorded and that they're on YouTube, okay? Always know that the messages are recorded and they're on YouTube. So if you do miss it, you can go back and revisit it. Because some of you do have to work. Some of you do want to maybe sleep in. For whatever rhyme, that's you. You see? We're not, we just want to know who's having problems with it. And to for those of you who you put up a P for problem, if it's a problem for you. Always know that you can't go watch the recording as well. That's your fail-safe. You can fall back on that one. And I wish you all great times with your families as well during this time. Great time with your families. Enjoy them. Make memories with your families and your extended families as well, and with humankind for that matter. And we'll leave it on that note. I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Hakohen. And I wish you all a great Shabbat Shalom, and Shalom Shalom to you as well.
Toda for that, Rabbi Kefa. Okay, so any questions that arise from this lecture? Anything you're not sure of? I think it's a good time to ask than to be unsure and not know what to do and how to do it. So also another thing that we got Christmas around the corner in 3 days' time. As you've been instructed and suggested, that now is a good time for you to meet with your families, parents, brothers and sisters, and bring peace and happiness into your lives and resolve all differences. And like you had problems in the past, and I was speaking to people in the last week, and one of the things that came up was Christmas trees, and I said, to the effect of that I really don't have a problem with people putting up Christmas trees in their house. In fact, I had a Christmas tree in my house when I first came to faith. I put a Christmas tree for my daughter at the time. And I had no problem with it, to be honest. And somebody asked, what about the verses in Jeremiah 10? And I said, well, the problem is this, that fundamentalists have taken those scriptures totally wrong, misapplied them, misappropriated them, and then applied it to the Christmas tree. And, they say things like, well, some Christians will say like, well, if we bend over under the tree is like bowing. And I said, no, it's not bowing to a tree. A tree is just a symbol, nothing more. It's nothing more than a symbol. And so therefore, if you want to put a tree up, go ahead, put a tree up. If that's a testimony for you, to testimony of the Messiah in your life, if it represents the birth of Jesus, so no problem. Fine. I know people who do that in the East as a testimony of their faith and testimony of Jesus, and I have no problem with that either. So, I would say that this is if it means that, you can bring other people together, if it means brotherhood, if it means, love and joy and peace, go ahead, do it. Go ahead, do it. So, absolutely no problem. The Torah has no such issues and no such prohibitions and no such problems. Because, we cannot take verses in Jeremiah 10, misappropriate them, misapply them, and use them totally incorrectly against something that is not even what they claim it to be. So this is very, very, very important that we understand that principle. And I think also that now that you've learned the law of assumption, and I've actually given you verses to prove, and I've only given you one set of verses, there are more verses to prove what I just said. But having said that, it's not necessary for me to give you, 15 different verses to prove a concept. All you need is one set of verses to prove the concept. And therefore, it is very important that you understand that. Daniel is saying that I was surprised that people in the East put up Christmas trees like in Dubai, for instance. Oh, absolutely they do. Christmas to most Eastern people is not about Yuletide and these things. Christmas to most Eastern people, and these are Arabs who are doing it. And these are Muslims, by the way. And the reason why they do it is because for most Christians in the East, it is a symbol of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. That's all it is. Nothing more than that. They do not, put more value than that. To them is their testimony, and to them is their faith. And, we have to respect that. We have to respect people's feelings. And at the end of the day, well, who is Jesus? Well, Jesus is not only their Savior and their King, is also our Savior and our King as well. So in that respect, retrospectively, I will encourage that. Why? Because if it brings people to faith, if it brings people to love, if it brings people to peace, then all the more for it. I'm all the more for it in that. And, so likewise, as you know that, my personal testimony, and as you know that what I teach is that I always teach you to be just. Always teach you to love people, to be just to them, irrespective of what they believe and what they do. Because, this is not just talking about different denominations of Christians. I'm talking about Muslims. I'm talking about Jews. I'm talking about Hindus. I'm talking about Buddhists. Or, even those who don't believe in God. So at the basic is love. If we don't love people, then we're just, just religionists and hypocrites and, contradictionists if we don't know how to love. So if we represent God, and our God is love, and our God is justice, and our God is mercy, then we must have those characteristics in us. We must act those out. If we don't, then we do a disservice to the God we serve. That's very, very important that we understand that principle in action. And that principle has to be done in action, because, just saying it is not enough. It needs to be in action as well, in our words, in our deeds, so that people can see it. And that's what we are as a people. So I wish you all, those of you who celebrate Christmas, a Merry Christmas, blessings during this time, and may you make good witnesses to the Lord God of Israel. Rabbi Kefa is saying that movie he was talking about, the Chinese movie he was talking about earlier, he said it was called I Am Not Madame Bovary in Netflix. I'm not Madame Bovary. It's 2016 movie. Thank you very much for that, Rabbi Kefa. Any questions before I close the room? Okay, no questions. Okay, that's great. So we see you, let me see now, next week, we've got, next week will be 29th, so this will be after Christmas now. So we'll meet up after Christmas on the Shabbat 29th. Until then, have a great week ahead, and I wish you all well, that you all celebrate with your families, have a great time together, eat all the turkey you can. Until next week, Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Shalom to you.